Live, baby. Oh man, now I freeze up. Dude, what is up, man? I'm so excited about tonight. We're going to
Yep.
cover so much fun stuff. Let me just do the intro real quick and then we'll tell everybody who we are. All right?
Yes. Yep.
What we're going to cover tonight is a ton of fun stuff that has happened. So we're going to talk about new race car friends, which you guys know, love that phrase. We have a new race car friends video out there and new race car friends that are coming to help the channel. Sick Week Racers, what we found on Racing Junk, and we're going to visit with Lake Speed about used oil analysis and why that is even important to drag and drive cars and racers. So, welcome to the Drag and Drive Show, presented by our new race car friend, Summit Racing Equipment. Guys, I'm so excited to have them on board. This is going to be a lot of fun. My name is Mike Narks. You can call me Mr. Drag and Drive as I'm putting it down there in the bottom. You don't really have to call me that. Just call me with any information and news. I don't care what you want to do. I run dragandrive.com and the Drag and Drive Addiction Facebook page and all that stuff. So, Eric, tell them who you are and what you do.
I am Eric White, and I run two different channels. I run 815 LSX Swaps, which you can guess is about LS swapped vehicles,
Mm-hmm.
and Motorsports Paparazzi, which is my media page for everything motorsports.
Yeah, dude, I'm excited about that. You're going to actually be at some events this summer for the Drag and Drive community. So that's going to really ignite your passion for Drag and Drive. And you're actually coming down to the circuit in
Yes.
April for that event. So we talked about hotel rooms and stuff like that. You and I probably aren't going to cuddle that weekend, but you're going to have some fun. I'm telling you, it's going to be a great weekend. And I want to start the show. I want to give a quick shout out to Devin Vanderhoof and his recent Drag and Drive win. Him and Jordan Tuck went down and dominated Sick Week. We're going to talk about those guys in a minute. But
Now
also,
I didn't see him on the class winners list.
well, so that's right. So with Jordan Tuck driving the car, Jordan actually populates the list. But
Mm,
new for 2023, we will have racer and co-pilot on our list that are coming out. I've got to get some more co-pilot names in the mix so I can start populating those lists, or it just looks like there's a lot of solo people. So I'm messaging through the groups now, trying to find out who is everyone's co-pilot that made the list. So I do want
gotcha.
to quick shout out to Devin for his recent video for drag and drive tips and tricks and all the stuff that he did to make that car competitive. I will link the link. I will link his video. Man, dude, it's been a long week. I will link his video in the description down below so you guys can go back and watch it after you get here, after you get done watching tonight. Because I'm telling you, you guys are going to want to stick around. It's going to be absolutely crazy. If you haven't done it yet, as you come in here, please hit that like button, hit the share button. We would appreciate that. Let everybody know that we are on live. I see Andrew Nelson in here making comments saying, good evening, guys. Dude, I hope you're doing great. I hope you are recovering very quickly. I know you are a tough dude. So I know we'll see you back out there very, very soon. And if you guys haven't done it, Nivlac57 is their channel. Calvin did a big video the other day that kind of explains what happened and how his dad's doing, Andrew is doing, and all that kind of stuff. So anyways, go to that. Go watch that after you get done here. All right, dude. Let's jump into it. Should we tell them? Should we tell them about the new race car friend stuff?
I think so. But
Yeah.
first, this Facebook user has stopped watching Lights Out to watch us. That's
Wow.
pretty impressive.
Man, I was watching a little bit of Lights Out earlier as well, while we were making notes and all that kind of stuff.
So, new race car friend.
Yes, new race car friend, y'all. This has been some time in the making here, and I want to say thank you to everyone that's out there because you are the ones that made this possible. And now with Summit Racing Equipment coming on board, y'all, we're fixing to get busy. This allows so much opportunity. If you haven't seen the video, the live stream I did while I was down there on Monday, went to the Summit truck, met with Jim Greenleaf. We jumped on live to make the big announcement. It was a ton of fun. With them as race car friends, we're going to be able to bring you more event coverage because I'm going to be able to hire some folks that are at events. I'm going to be able to purchase some ticket or some pictures from photographers and things like that, which I'm actually reaching out to them this week, to all the photographers that were at Sick Week. We're going to bring you more live streams. Eric doesn't know that yet, but we're about to. That's really exciting. You guys know I love being on here, talking to you guys, keeping you guys updated on all the news and entertainment that goes on in this wild community we call Drag and Drive. We're going to visit more events. We're going to give Drag and Drive racers. This is probably one of my favorite things about this whole deal is the Drag and Drive Racer Awards. Now, we did the decals last year. We had a setup at PRI where I was running around trying to hand out the decals and stuff. We're actually, with this setup, we're going to do a full-on award show, closed room, come up, get your awards, pictures, all that kind of really cool stuff. So what we wanted to do last year, this year is going to be bigger and better because of Summit Racing. We can't thank them enough. So they are becoming the number one source for parts within the Drag and Drive community. And guys, I'm telling you, they're at these events. They race these events. Tommy Dupree and Jim Greenleaf both race. And I don't know if I have it or not yet. I should even say it. But last year when Jim was on the show, he was talking about a Camaro that he's finishing for himself. That was his first car. He's finishing it, and it is built for Drag and Drive. And maybe we'll see that car this year. I don't know. The plan was for them to bring it to Drag Week this last year and race it, but it wasn't done in time. So will we see them at Drag Week this year? And I don't know. I'm really excited about that. And then, within all of this, they also are now sponsors of our event that I host, the circuit, which we talked about a minute ago, that Eric's coming down to with Motorsports Paparazzi, Mocan Dragway, mid-April. I see Jay Blanchard over there in the comment section. Him and Brian Acton are coming down. Guys, I got a little bit of video from Sick Week of them, but they didn't finish as high as I figured they would. I figured they were fixing to take the whole win and everything. It was pretty wild. The 850 class at Sick Week was nuts, and I think we're only going to see it get tighter and tighter as more tuning understanding happens and these cars get more dialed in to that 850 number. So let's see. We talked about all of Jim and them coming on, y'all. It's really, this is a big deal. I'm really anxious and nervous about it, to be honest, 100% with you, because there is so much that comes with having a partner like Summit Racing that allows us to do. So there's so many things that are working behind the scenes to one, show them the love that they need for coming on and supporting us. So thank you to them. We will have Jim or Tommy on coming up, but they are at Lights Out this weekend, so we'll have them on in the next few weeks. So
I think it's going to be huge for you, and
dude,
I don't think you have anything to be worried about. I mean, let's be honest, you're one of the hardest working, if not the hardest working person in Drag and Drive. So I'm excited.
Well, I appreciate that, and we're taking a swing at it for sure. We are we're going to work, and the one thing about it is I don't know, it makes me work harder when we get a win like that. And all of our other sponsors, Molly and Racing Junk and Sweet Patina and Howard's Cams, all those folks coming on board only help fuel this fire. And guys, when people start getting behind us, the ball starts rolling and you end up with crazy stuff. So
yeah,
bring it on. I mean, last year was our first year to do anything. This year, now we got our feet under us. Look out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Think about where you were at this time last year and where you are today. It's incredible.
Yeah. It's pretty funny. I wish that I could pull up Summit's, or not Summit, Instagram last year to see where we were on February 22nd, because I'm telling you, I think we had 200 or 300 followers. And obviously we have, more than 70,000 followers across all social media. And I'm going to start posting again to TikTok. You've been on me. I'm going to do it. I'm going to post some stuff this week. So
I've heard that before.
Yeah. Well, it's going to happen this time. I see Derek Putnam saying both 850 classes, 6 street race and street race 275. I don't know if you guys watched. Yeah, I don't know if you guys watched the Friday live stream, but I was doing math at home, and I'll explain why I was home here in a minute. But I was doing the math at home based on all the stuff. Every time one of those guys would make a pass, I would literally type in what that pass was and see what it did to the run order. If they were faster than, I had if they're faster than an 854, what does it do? And somebody around like a 8536, and I'd be like, what's that mean? And Jordan and William Lujan swapped 4 or 5 times, I think, just in the times they were making passes, and ended up racing side by side once. And I think that is what determined the winner of their class. Like, it was absolutely nuts. It was intense, to say the least, for sure. I see David Maxon said that Summit delivered a throttle cable last year at Midwest Drags. Yeah, good bunch of guys over there for sure. One thing we did do is dragondrive.com racer lists are now presented by Summit Racing. You can find all these at dragondrive.com. And then the top 100 is uploaded right now, and it is all new for this year. Of course, we don't have any co-pilots on there yet, but it is coming. And then Michael Westberg, number 1, went from number 2 on the list last year, now is number 1. And then our buddy Cooper Spaghetti, is number 100 in the bump spot. So that's kind of cool. He had a big share the other day on that, and that really helped the channel grow. We picked up a couple hundred followers that way. And what's Devin talking about?
He was a Facebook user.
Yep. So I see Devin in there, dude. If you didn't catch it a while ago, thank you for the video the other day for your YouTube channel. That was great, for the tips on how to survive a drag and drive and how to build your car for it.
Yeah, I really liked that, and a lot of that was what we talked about when he was on the show. But a lot of good information in that video, so people should definitely go check that out.
Yep. And I think the automated part of what he preaches all the time is what people should really do. Like, they weren't flipping switches when it would get hot or anything like that. So it's really, really a great video. It's about 13 or 14 minutes long. I think it really lays out why all the stuff worked. And the other side of that is that car is a top level fast car, probably the fastest car of the event, on like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I mean, it probably could have ran at the front with any of them. I know he got real close to some 6-second passes, maybe even had made a 6-second pass on a 235 tire. So we'll see what he does with that through the end of the year. But again, right now, Jordan's name will be populated on the 8th mile list, which is built and backstage on the website. It just hasn't been turned on yet. We need a few more items of artwork to finish that up. And then all of the 11, 12, 13, and 14-second lists will be populated from that as well. There's not very many of those cars from Sick Week. Most of them were, faster than 13 seconds. So there'll be just a few on 13 and 14-second list. Trying to think what else about list stuff. There's so much coming. We are adding a national 8th mile list because of Devin's event, now with Devin and the Rowdy Radio classes within Sick Week and Rocky Mountain events, and then Miles of Mayhem. So we're doing a national 8th mile 235 only, and then we're doing a national 8th mile 275 plus list. So I know everybody got a little wild about lists last year, about there being too many. We'll sit down and hold on, because there's going to be more for this year. But there's so many events and so many different styles. I don't feel like it's fair for a 235 racer. And everybody, I think, feels the same way that has, made their comments to me. But a 235 racer at a national event should not also be included with a big tire car at a regional event that's running 8th mile. So, I mean, it makes 100% sense. Just didn't want to deal with it that long. So we'll probably go to a top 25 style list for the 8th mile for those 4. So anyways, that was a lot. I feel like I just power slammed everybody with a ton of info.
We got a Facebook user here that said Friday night was rough, but squeezed the win out.
Yeah, that's probably William Lujan. Because it was wild to watch that at home. So I'll lay out a little bit of stuff of why we will bet right now that we stay fastest on the 8th mile list, no matter the tire. Yeah, guys, 460s, insane. 460, 46, 44 average ET across 5 days of racing at Sick Week. It was absolutely intense to watch that. And that car was really cool. I got to watch 2 days of racing while I was down there. I arrived Monday or Sunday evening at like midnight and drove to the track, slept in the van. Thank you to Jason Schaefer in the Chicken Coop Hot Rod for letting me borrow a sleeping bag that let me survive Sunday night. And then Monday ran around, tons of conversations, great conversations with everybody, tons of video. I mean, I think I took 300 and something videos.
Wow.
Monday night while at dinner with Matt Zelenko of Street to Strip Photography, got a call from my wife. My mother-in-law had a stroke about 10 days before I left, or sorry, 3 days before I left. We thought she was doing okay. Monday night, wife called, said, hey, she's not doing that great. Probably need to come home so I can take care of her. So drove to Tampa, got on the phone with the airlines, figured out how I could get home, where to turn the rental car in, all that kind of stuff. Luckily, a few people, Patrick Garrett at Roadrunner Media took Matt Zelenko with him. And so he had a ride for the week, which was great. The drag and drive community is wonderful people for sure. And so Matt went with him at the end of Tuesday, and I drove to Tampa airport and flew home and watched all of the racing from home all week. I still stayed away from work. I just sat here and edited videos and watched and tried to get notes made and things like that. But that has hindered some posting, I will say, because just we've been so busy with that, trying to figure out all the stuff that comes along with, medical difficulties with family members and things like that. So anyways, that's why I've been kind of out and about the last few days. So, and haven't posted nearly as much.
Yeah. Family always comes first. So you did the right thing there for sure.
Yeah, it was very hard. This was the hardest trip I've had to leave all of my friends down there.
Yeah.
Because it was really, Tuesday was just really getting rolling. And I stayed till about 4:00, which is the absolute latest I could stay, and hauled Butte over to the airport and then rolled out. Dan Chandler here saying it's crazy how that Mustang goes down the track, especially on those tires. I mean, Devin said in his video that car makes 3,200 horsepower.
Yeah.
So pretty wild. I see Bill Elkins in here too.
I do have a question. Didn't Devin say he was going to be the first car down the track?
I think he was the first car down the track.
Was he? That was going to be my
think
question.
In competition, he was the first car down the track.
Okay.
And then went one and done the rest of the week. I don't think they made more than 10 passes all week. He'll be able to tell us in the comments there in the chat.
Rich said, leave the tires together so you can see the small tires, letting them hang.
Yeah, it maybe, I don't know. We'll see how many people we end up with at the end of the year. If we don't have something that I feel like is a good representation of the top 25, we may combine lists. But I think with the quantity of 235 eighth mile racing that we're going to see this year from national level events, Miles of Mayhem, Evans 2 events, both Rocky Mountain events, Rocky Mountain and then Race Week, and then Sick Week. And I'm sure they're going to do a 235 class for Sick Summer. So by the time you start doing all of that, like that should give us enough to handle a top 25 or even top 50 list. Yeah, Devin says 1 pass per day, except the last day we went with my 442 up, but the track went away and we spun 40 feet out. That car just did work. It was amazing to watch. So
yeah, and to be able to do 1 pass per day on a 3,200 horsepower car is that says something about the way it's been built for sure.
Yeah, and a 235 tire. So 26 8.5. I mean, that's a tire that just absolutely must be, it's ragged edge the entire time he's making a pass. And obviously he's the fastest. We did have another 4-second car in the 8th in the Rowdy Radio class. I just can't remember their name off the top of my head. So we'll get that in just a minute when we're talking about Sick Week stuff. I'll flip over to the spreadsheet and get it figured out. Faster than Brett. Yes, Devin is definitely faster than Brett as far as at a drag and drive event. So Sheldon Root. Yep, there we go.
Cool. And especially when you think about how he made 1 pass per day, and then think about the number of cars that broke down during the week too. I mean, those were some big names broke down pretty early on.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that number here in a minute because it is the largest percentage of attrition we have seen at any drag and drive event. And that's what happens when you are thrashing to get your car done at the end of a year of racing and then come over into a February event. A lot of times these guys are not used to getting a car ready for this. So they're racing in drag week, and 4 months later you're here racing in sick week. So pretty intense year, and we'll just see more of that as we go. It's going to be harder and harder because there's things that are working behind the scenes that will make people want to attend more events. I don't know how else to say that and not give the beans, but there's cool stuff coming. I promise you, cool stuff coming. We've been working with a lot of folks to try and really push this community to that next level, and I think that's what we're going to do. So we definitely want to hear what your experience was in the chat. If you're over in the side, if you're watching this now, and if you're watching this later, in the comments down below, please, about your experience from the event. If you were paying attention and have been around for a while, you know that we have, I typically turn funny comments or motivational stuff into memes and throw them up on the page. I really love doing that. So throw your good stuff over in the chat or down in the comments below, and you may see your name and car on on a meme coming up. So
so talking about cars that dropped out, there was not only cars that broke, but we had a couple bad accidents too, and we talked a little bit about one of them with Andrew.
Yeah, so let's start with him in the Volvo that was literally built for Dragon. I've built right up to, days before sick week. They were on the dyno for the first time. A little Volvo they pulled from the junkyard. They're big into the 4200 Vortex series right now, and so those guys have built race cars for a long time and built a 650 cage for that car. 650 cage, 60 cage. I don't know, whatever. It's really whatever, your fast cage would be in this little bitty tiny Volvo. They did that, and the car was running well in the nines. Luckily, they had overbuilt a cage and not built something right up to the edge. And because I think he lost a oil feed line or something like that on the turbo, and I'm sure they can, 650 cage, he says in the comments. And I'm sure he'll tell us, and I don't remember from Calvin's video, but then I think it put a rod through the oil pan, and then obviously on slick tires, that creates a problem. Ended up in the air a few, I think 15 feet in the air, and then landed, and then was on fire for a minute. So pretty intense wreck, especially midway through the week. Kind of really, obviously nobody wants to see that, but especially if you're racing with your son and your wife, nobody ever wants to see any accidents or anything like that. But we did get to hang out with them Monday on the drive. We were actually right behind them, me and Matt, and so we got a ton of good content with them, and I'm sending that to Calvin over this next week. So,
and the best part of all that is that he's here, he's in the comments, and everything is good. So safety equipment definitely on par.
Yes, and that's one thing. Never skimp on. With running the event that we do, I've had a few questions of, hey, my belts may not be up to par. Is that going to be okay? And I'm like, man, listen, I see Alan Murray talking about Brett in the 420s. I don't know if that's on a drag and drive. Maybe I missed that or something like that. In an 8th mile class only, because that's what, if someone runs an 8th mile, they may run a 420, but they're not going to populate the 8th mile list because it's a dedicated list for only 8th mile racing. So somebody may run faster in a 1/4 mile car, but we don't care about that because all we're getting is the data from the track itself or from the event staff itself. So anyways, the safety equipment did what it should for Andrew, and luckily he's safe and he's at home, probably laid up in the bed and resting. He said it blew the side of the block out. 9 quarts hit the track. So probably it got real slick real fast.
Right.
And then on day one, Dave Schroeder in the blue Corvette, their new vet, I don't know what happened there. Anytime you run 4 kits of nitrous and a gigantic rare Morrison block, who knows what is about to happen. But he unfortunately did the same thing. He actually, somebody said, collided with the wall at like 177 miles an hour. So that's pretty fast. Yeah. And so that it's a Bickle built car. So that did exactly what it was supposed to do and keep him safe. He walked away from it, and wrecks like that really put things into perspective of, hey, we're doing this for a lot of fun, but at the same time we're doing, you've got to be as safe as you can. There's a lot of times where people will maybe not buy that set of belts, or maybe go 2 more years on that helmet or whatever.
Right.
One of the things that Devin talked about in the video is a fire suppression system, which is a great idea, because it would be very easy to clean up fire suppression stuff compared to, all the parts and wiring and things like that you're going to have to do. So see, a Facebook user here says, it was good to see a decent number of fellow Canadians make the trip down. Yep. If not all, ran Miles of Mayhem up here last year. Yeah, there was a ton of Canadians. Got to talk to Raymond Houpe one day in the staging lanes, and we talked about why he chose a C6 behind his Coyote setup instead of a Turbo 400. And he said he's all for it. He doesn't care. He's like, I'm all for it, only for it. So
I did see on Facebook that Schroeder, though, is pulling out his old vet now.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't remember what year that one was offhand.
Yeah, I think it's a 66, and that car has won Drag Week as well. So they've won Drag Week in 2 different blue Corvettes. So that'll be pretty cool to see that car back out. Should we talk about the Tom McGilton bringing the 34 Ford out?
Yeah,
dude.
Yeah. How many years was that sitting?
11.
11 years.
It had been 11 years since it had been at a drag and drive event. I'll say that,
Okay.
based on the research that I have, because he built the new car and he's like, I want to go 7s, and that car ran 9s. And it was so cool to see that, though, and know what I know now, and seeing that car and just watching, because I think it ended the week at like a 9.7, which is the fastest it had ever done.
Yeah.
Fastest average it had ever been. And I think in competition for a drag and drive that I had seen, it was the fastest pass it had made as well.
So Andrew says he suspects that a chunk of the block cut the rear tire.
Ooh.
Other concern was we did have engine braking with the forward pattern transmission.
Wow. Yeah, and one more down there. He says seat safety and comfort would be a good topic. Yeah, I would love to talk to someone in depth about that. I think that would be a great guest conversation. I don't know, obviously the in-depth ins and outs of that, but if there's a few people that would love to jump on, definitely message me. Mike at dragonddrive.com is the easiest way to get a hold of me. And then Scott Z said he messaged with Schroeder. He likes 8th Mile for unlimited cars. I think it's a great idea. It's what Scott says. I think it's a great idea too. That is actually what we're doing at our event in April, mainly because I think you see a lot of pro mod classes are going to 8th Mile racing or 1,000 foot. I think once you shorten it to 8th Mile, it really opens up a lot of opportunity for more high level race cars to come in. We haven't seen a lot of that. We've seen cars that have kind of been purpose built for this. We haven't seen maybe a wild radio versus the world car or pro mod car being backed off enough to come into drag and drive yet. So I see Taylor Hedrick here says, I guess we'll have to wait to see a 7-second stick average. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Yeah, I mean, like Chad Fagley completely annihilated his his transmission, and we're going to talk about that here in a second, because there's a lot that goes into winning these, and a lot of times finishing it is the way to win, and so we're gonna go over that.
Hopefully we didn't jinx those guys by having them on the show beforehand.
Hey, you don't talk about that. Scott Z says Schroeder said nothing good happens after 660 feet as a new unlimited class car. Yeah, I'm kind of into some 8th Mile stuff. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Again, you're looking at a lot of history brought into these events, and a lot of, legacy that a lot of people don't, do they want to change it? Do they not want to change it? All that kind of stuff. So let's jump into class winners. I want to say thanks everybody for all the comments there. Class winners, obviously Michael Westberg in the 91 S10, absolutely insane. 646 as an average. It was crazy. That truck absolutely works. I know they made several passes. He's on a cruise right now, or I would have asked, number of passes they made to get to that all week. I know they were shooting for a 6:30 by the end of the week, which is insane, especially considering, like, can you imagine how hard it would be to say, no, we're not going to make one more pass? Because a 6:400 is going to be as close as we're going to get to a 6:30. Oh, it broke my heart. Broke my heart. But
Taylor said he'll never be back. We jinxed him.
yeah,
I knew it.
That's I don't know if I even saw Jeremy Howell down there. He may have broken on day zero. I don't know. I didn't see that car, but that's not because I was, I mean, I was running around, but I don't know if I was looking.
And the other wild thing about Westberg's S10 is it was just for sale prior to Stick Week.
Oh, you mean when we featured it here on the racingjunk.com, found on Racing Junk? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I feel like it was pretty inexpensive at $25,000 for the roller, considering the work that would go into making that truck, safe for that level. Right. And the way I understand it, and again, I'd like to get clarification from someone that knows more. I think he sold it to someone, so it's getting shipped back to Sweden. And so they were pulling the engine and trans out again, obviously as a roller. I think it's going back, and I don't know why they would pull the engine and trans here, because he's building a car in Sweden to compete over there for Street Week. That'll be a brand new setup that'll be even faster than the S10. So,
well, somebody's going to get a real nice truck, I can tell you that.
Yeah, with a lot of really cool history. That truck has been very, very fast everywhere it's gone. So that's pretty cool.
Throw an LS in it and go race it.
Dude, I wish I had a lot of money, because I'd do dumb stuff. Like, I would buy that truck, and then I'd put like a junkyard 300,000 mile 5.3 in it with rattly lifters and like a 78, 75 turbo. Make like 500, and it'd just be dumb. People would pop the hood and be like, "What is it?" I'd leave it dirty and gross and everything, man.
You might need to call someone up and say, "Hey, can
I get some here? Can I get some shiny valve covers for this?" Howard's cams for a good cam, and then get set up. We need a turbo sponsor on here, turbo person. So
hey, that's a good idea. We could take all of your sponsors and do like a build off, and we could build one drag and drive car. I've been in a build before. We built the Volvo in 5 days. So
I'm not going to say anymore, but okay. Unlimited Iron, Alex Taylor in the 55 Chevrolet. She had a 6-second average. She almost ran sixes all week long. On the final day, she ran a 7.087, but every other pass was a 690 something.
And I think they had troubles on the last day, right? That's why they didn't get the 6.
Yep. Yeah. So they just she would either spin the tires, or it would shake the tires and was turning stuff off. I think they ended up making 4 or 5 passes on Friday.
Was that the day they broke like the gear vendor or something? I thought I saw that they broke like 2 or 3 or something. I know they were having a bunch of issues.
Yeah, when the tire, and that's one of the biggest benefits, and we'll have Rick Johnson on at some point in the near future, but that's one of the biggest reasons people of that caliber run the gear vendor, is because if you have a situation where the tire's shaking, it's going to break something, it's going to break the gear vendor, which is easily. Yeah, Scott Z says they broke 3 gear vendor setups that day.
Yeah, I thought I read something about at least 2 or 3. They were having all kinds of issues. And
yeah, it was pretty intense.
Say what's up to Dirty Panda too.
Yeah, man, what's up? She reset the fastest woman in drag and drive title from a 754 to now a 6,986. Pretty impressive. I see Paul Castiglione. He is the intro to a few of the videos that are coming out the rest of this week. He came up to me. Literally, I'm filming on Nick and David Deal's car, and I pan up and I see Paulie, and he's like, "Race car friends." And it was perfect. The way he said it, everything was great. So Paulie C, love you, bud. So yeah, Alex Taylor resets the female fastest woman in drag and drive history title, with Tina Pierce literally right on her heels. I mean, she was running 7.0s all week. So very, very close. All Alex needed was to make one slip, and Tina would have taken that from her. For about 45 minutes on Friday, Tina was in the lead.
Oh wow.
But then Alex came out and laid the smack down on it and ran the 708. So finished it up pretty well. And then modified Brett LaSala won that with his 2012 Mustang. Car's absolutely gorgeous. And it is a radial tire record for a drag and drive event. So that's pretty cool with a 6,744 average. I mean, absolutely insane. So you have to think that's 4 cars with Stefan Gustafsson in the 6s. Well, actually, hold on. Let's just jump over to draganddrive.com. It is our home screen. When you type in draganddrive.com, you are taken right to the 2023 fastest 100. You can search by name. So we got Michael Westberg, Stefan Gustafsson with the 6,598, which was faster than his Sick Week 2022. Brett LaSala 6,744, and then Alex Taylor 6,987. So we technically have more cars in 2023 in the 6s than we had at this time in 2022 in the 6s. So it is shaping up to be a faster year. So it's pretty awesome.
And once we get through all these class winners, we'll talk about that number 1 spot and how much it's changed over the last couple of years. It's actually pretty incredible.
Yeah, it is intense. Pro Street, Clint Sadowski won it in his 68 Camaro. Y'all, that car is one of my favorite cars. He's one of my favorite people. Jim Parkinson was his co-pilot, tuned the car, did a lot of work on the car. I think essentially built it. And it is a very, very, very nice first-gen Camaro. 769 with a 7 average for those guys. Absolutely killed the week, man. It was amazing. And they're both really nice dudes. Super Street, this is kind of a cool name you haven't heard in a very long time. Eric Yost. We all know who Biggin is, but he actually brought his own car out. So Customs by Biggin, big name in all of this stuff and all of like radial racing and things like that. His 68 Camaro ends the week with a 746. It's his first drag and drive as a driver since Rocky Mountain Race Week 2015.
Wow.
Absolutely insane. And at that point, he won Ultimate Radial at Rocky Mountain Race Week with an 8.513. I didn't see what car it was in. I don't think I have the cars for 2015 Rocky Mountain.
Okay.
So
that was going to be my question, what car it was.
Yep. So I'll reach out to Eric tomorrow and find out what he raced then, and maybe it's the same car. I don't know. That's the kind of nerdy stuff that I really would love to know,
Do you know if that car is that a paint or a wrap on that car?
It's a wrap.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's definitely unique, and you can definitely spot it out for sure.
Oh yeah, I love the patina look on it. It's I wish it was real patina, because then we would get our another one of our sponsors, Sweet Patina, to send him over a care package. Maybe he needs to anyways. I don't know. We'll see.
You go. Which is pretty cool, because you don't see too many 68 Camaros with patina on them.
Wow.
So I really like it. Most of the first gen Camaros you see are all nice paint jobs and everything.
Yep. A Facebook user here says it is the same Camaro from 2015. That's pretty intense, man. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. I love when stuff like that comes about, because that car has had tons of upgrades to go from an 850 car to now a 746 average. So it ran faster than that. Dude, how about Mr. Rich Guido?
I mean,
dude is an animal. An
round
animal.
Of applause.
Yes. Chef's kiss. Golf clap. Man, listen, that dude's one of my favorite people ever. He's always really nice. He's always got a smile on his face, and he's having fun. Drove the car 7,000 miles, I think, something like that crazy.
Yeah.
Raced it. Wins stick shift for the second time. I don't know if anybody has been paying attention to his posts. We've been sharing a bunch lately, but every time they post, his dad was his co-pilot for this year and last year. They're both wearing orange helmets. I love it. It's absolutely amazing. So congratulations to him. And, Taylor Hedrick over here talking about he's a freaking gangster. Listen, there were so many supposed to be cars faster than Rich Guido going into that event. Rich ran his fastest pass ever on day 2 at Bradenton, which is really cool. I got all of that footage. I told Blaine from the very beginning, I'm like, dude, this is it. I feel it right here, And so yeah, it was pretty intense. That video is up on the channel right now of his fastest pass and Blaine's reaction to that and all that stuff. 3 cars, Taylor Hedrick. Well, the 3 dudes we had on here, Taylor, Jeremy Howell, and Chad Fegley, were all supposed to be faster than Rich Guido and set a new 7-second record and all that kind of stuff for drag and drive stick shift. But sadly, those dudes, when you're on the boil like that, dude, it's hard to get there. See, I see Steven Narks, my little brother, coming in here. He's a stick shift racer. He's got a bunch of upgrades done to the MG. Oh, hey, here we go. Trevor Hawkins says, Rich is the reason I'm going to run G-Force in my car. Yeah, best testament possible for him. I mean, really, It is. He drives that car all the time. There were so many people that spotted Rich on the way home that they literally, it was just him blasting past people. And he was far enough ahead, you could tell he was running 15 or 20 miles an hour faster, and he flew past them, and they pulled their phone out and then snapped a picture because he'd be like, 30 cars in front of him. So it was pretty awesome.
He should definitely be like, kind of like they're mentioned here, the best testament possible. He needs to be like a spokesperson for some companies.
Yeah, that's for sure. And
get that man some sponsors.
Right. I can't remember who he uses for clutch, but I think it's Black Magic. He talks about it on him and Bill Armstrong, another big stick shift racer, host a podcast called the Clutch Burners podcast on YouTube, run by Stick Shift Nation. Super great deal if you want to really dive into the stick shift drag racing world. They have great guests and all that kind of stuff. So, and yeah, he had Blaine with him. I see Dirty Panda talking about he had Blaine with him. David Maxon, what? We'll get you. Steven's beard is definitely cooler than mine, and he probably is better looking. He's skinnier than I am for sure. So you want to talk about the NA Pro Street? So let me ask you this from the outside in, because you made the notes for today. I appreciate you doing that, putting all the class winners in here. You had naturally aspirated winner in here, and you had James McIntyre. Mm-hmm. Now, if you are on the outside looking in, that is true. He did win overall naturally aspirated, but there are actually 3 classes broken down within the naturally aspirated groupings. There's Pro Street, there's modified, and then something else. I don't know. I don't remember the other one because I didn't put it in here, but James McIntyre won in a Pro Street in his 68 Camaro. Haven't we? That's a few 68 Camaros that have won, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So what you're saying is people should jump over to that's 3 now. Yeah. People should jump over to racingjunk.com and maybe look for 68 Camaros if they want to come out and win.
I mean, don't give my secret away yet.
So he won it 7.834 average, new NA record, new naturally aspirated record for drag and drive. And then Jason Tabscott won the naturally aspirated modified with a 70 Camaro with it, which is his average was 8.596. It is the new naturally aspirated small block record. And it was actually reset by Jason himself from his 8.696. So a full 1/10 of a second faster average from Hot Rod Drag Week 2022, just a few months ago. So pretty intense week of naturally aspirated racing.
Right. Those are some impressive numbers too.
I mean, dude,
NA cars.
Yeah, I mean, you think about that. There's not boosted LS cars running that kind of power, and for Tabscott, he's got a Gen 1 small block in it. Now, James' setup is a little different. Doc McIntyre's is a little different. It's a huge, gigantic. Somebody will correct me, but I think it's a Sonny's Hemi setup. It's a wild car, and I would love to have Doc and Jeff on at some point in the future because their level of valve train knowledge is pretty intense, and I think we could really teach some people a lot of that stuff. Same with Jason and Amanda Tabscott. Their thought process going into the build is pretty awesome. And then one other shout out I do want to give to Jerry and Matt Sweet. They took second place in NA Pro Street in their Nova, like a Disco Nova 78 or 9, I think, something like that. Love the backstory to that car. And then those guys, I think, ended with like an 850, which was their fastest pass that they had ever made in that car. So a lot of work went into getting these cars to this level, and then they came out 6 week and just laid it down. So it'll be fun to see how much faster people get throughout the year.
Right. This says it's not a Sonny's Motors, it's a 709 Goodwin motor.
That's right. Yep, good one. Sorry. Yep. There you go. Sorry about that. That's why I love the community, man. They're going to keep us right here. That is
right.
coming in an article that I'm writing about NA stuff for this year, which is really cool. Rowdy Radials, Jordan Tuck, obviously in the 93 Mustang with a 4.644 average. We talked about Devin and those guys earlier. It is the first 8th mile class for Sick Week, which I think we're going to, again, see some of that for Sick Summer. And we're going to see other events adopt an 8th mile setup. Now, Rowdy Radials is a 235 only 8th mile class. So, and obviously, like we talked earlier, they reset the 8th mile average and pass fastest time in drag and drive history. Say that 11 times fast.
Right.
So pretty crazy car. I love that. And obviously you can go find that on the Devin Vanderhoof YouTube channel. Dude, why don't you run these next few and I'll tap in with some stats because the next one's pretty cool.
All right. I will try not to mess up names here. I have no promises there.
That's why I gave it to you.
We got Sick Freaks up next, and that was won by Tony Nimchek with 95 Eclipse. That was an 8.760, and it looks like that was a repeat win for him for Sick Week or for Sick Freaks.
Yeah, and he actually did an entire walk around of his trailer and the car with us. I'm editing that video as well. So pretty cool for him to win 2 times in a row. That is a 4G63 all-wheel drive setup with a gigantic turbo on it. So,
I mean, I'm impressed that a 4G63 lasted long enough to make a pass like that. Next, we got Street Race 275, and that was William Lawan in a 90 Mustang. Lujan. Yep. See, I told you I would screw it up. 90 Mustang. It's 8.542. And he finished second at Sick Week 2022.
Yeah.
And first at Race Week with an 8.510 average.
Yeah, pretty intense. Oh no, that was Aaron Schaefer. Yep.
See what happens?
You've moved ahead on the notes. Sorry, I was running through them pretty fast here. So this year for Sick Week, they had Street Race 275, and then they had Sick Street Race, which was limited to an 11.5-inch wide tire. I truly don't know why they had the 2 classes. They were both limited to 850. They were both 850 classes. I'm sure somebody can come in and explain it. But the William Lujan and Jordan Boudreau battle was absolutely intense. We talked about that a little bit earlier.
Yeah, and we'll get down to that a little bit here in a second too, with how close those were.
Oh man, it was crazy. Sick Street Race. Aaron Schaefer literally told me earlier in the year he was coming out. His car was dialed. He was going to win that class, and he did. 98 Camaro. It's silverback SS on Instagram. He won it with an 8.5106. Second at Sick Week 2022. He took first at Race Week 2022 with an 8.5105 average. So he's literally won 10 thousandths faster average than what he was. So
that's crazy.
It was nuts. Jay Blanchard said that there's less limitations in 275 street. So makes sense. That class was as intense as the Street Race 275 because it was between Aaron Schaefer and Dustin Trance. So that's a full story I'm writing as well. Those guys made pass after pass after pass on Friday, trying to lock in the win. It was really cool. About 2 hours before the lanes closed, I mean, I'm doing all this math for Derek and Adam, and I'm like, oh man, these guys would make passes and stuff. And then it got to a point where Dustin couldn't win no matter if he ran an 8.500. So pretty intense. Wow. Yep. Pretty wild there. Pro DYO, Nicholas Decimine. The Sick LTD is his Instagram, Sick_LTD on Instagram. You guys got to go follow him. Pro DYO is faster than 10 seconds, but you are working for the most consistent, or sorry, you're working for the smallest spread across the week. This
And
is
that's
where
from
it's,
your quickest to your slowest pass for the week.
yep. And you've got to turn in one a day, obviously. Nick's spread was 0.034 across 5 days, 4 different tracks, pretty intense. His fastest pass of the week that he turned in was a 9.262. Slowest was a 9.296. So literally 0.034. The coolest thing about the DYO class, and I think we're going to see more of that as we go, is it allows a car that maybe isn't an index car. So if you look at some of the other events, you have like a 10-second index. Well, so does Nick then slow down his car to run 10-0s? So how do you're used to running it all out. Now you've got to run it and be so conservative to try and make it to a 10-0. Do you let off at 1,000 foot and let it coast, things like
Right.
that. So I really like this DYO setup. I'm talking to a few other events. We're doing the same deal at my event in April. That way, a car that runs 1230s can run 1230s all week and be as competitive as somebody that runs 930s like this guy. DYO was won by Wilfred Blanco in a 2016 Mustang with a 0.046 spread. So, I mean, think about this. These are guys that are really fast, that literally he ran a 10.054 as his fastest and 10.058 as his slowest. Like,
Yeah, that's
or
wild.
turned in, I guess is probably the better way to say that. So,
Yeah, that's super cool though. It's to
yeah,
be able to get them that close, which I think you've mentioned this before, but that's going to allow a lot more bracket racers to kind
yeah.
of find their way into drag and drives, which will be cool.
Yep, I think that's our next big growth area, is to bring bracket racers in, and classes like this DYO stuff will do that, and index racing and things like that, because those guys can dial that car in because they race a bracket every weekend. And so being the most consistent is the way to win this, and there's a lot of big money bracket cars that are built every year. So we'd sure love to have a few of those maybe over here in Drag and Drive for sure.
Right. So we got what, 3 more classes here? We've
Yep.
got Beatles, which was won by James Holt,
Hmm.
in his Carmen Gia, which he ran an 11.654.
Yeah, this whole car is so fun. It's a turbo. It's a actual VW engine, and his joke is that everybody that he shows the car to says, "Well, a Porsche motor will fit right in there." So he kind of went TikTok viral on our TikTok channel. I think right after Sick Week last year, with all the comments about Porsche engines and how I misspelled Carmen Gia. So it's
I
pretty good. Couple 100,000 views.
Yeah, if you wanna go viral on TikTok, screw something up.
Oh, dude, I
That'll
love it.
do it.
Yeah, people will immediately tell you what you did wrong. So
Yeah,
we're
I
good.
have a video block honing, and everybody was like, "Oh my god, you're doing it wrong."
Yep, yep,
It was
yeah. That
wild.
that's a good one. That's a good one.
All right, we got hot rod class next, which was Larry West with his 41 Willys, and that was a 10.033 average.
Wow. Jay Blanchard said that Aaron Schaefer's spread was 0.024, just for reference.
Wow. And what was his pass?
He was the one that won street race, 6 street race, with a
Okay,
85106
that's
average for
right.
this year. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. That's pretty intense, dude. And then Gasser class, this Robert Levins in a 65 Chevy 2. This car was really a cool car. It was like, it had paint on the side, like it had, it was kind of an old school setup. It was really neat. Yeah, Jay Blanchard said here, managed 8500 to 8524 was his slowest pass submitted for Aaron Schaefer. So
Okay.
yeah, Jordan Boudreau says Aaron was surgical. Dude, hey, he laid it out early on. The guys that were in that class with him knew he was coming to win it, and obviously finishing race week with an 85105 average compared to this 85106 average, dude's got the car dialed for sure. So
And that was the 4th time in drag and drive history that an 8500 has happened.
Yep.
So that's
Especially at a national event. So I
yeah,
don't keep track of that stuff in regional stuff, but yeah, national level week long event, fourth time in history, and 18 years of drag and drive stuff. So pretty impressive.
right.
Yeah, Robert Levins won the Gasser class in his 65 Chevy 2 with a 12,117 average. Pretty cool car. I'll show a video of it. I've got just a snippet of it that'll be up later this week as well. Yeah, close classes, dude.
These were wild.
I mean, and here's what's crazy for people to understand at home is like we're talking about the averages across the week, not your all out hero pass, right?
Right.
So street race 275, William Lujan, 8.52428. And then Jordan Boudreau is an 8.5436. And Jordan here in the chat says we hit a 499 and a 501 during the week. Yeah. That's the other part too, right? So these cars are obviously faster than 850. So they're getting there and they're having to either slow down or turn the dial it back or not make as much power or anything like that. Sorry, I've got a text here from the kid.
Yeah.
Well,
So
lead us on there.
so the difference between those two passes is 0.0008.
Yeah,
Like how crazy is
but
that?
between those two averages, dude. Between those
Yeah,
two
averages.
averages. Yep. Yep.
So, do
Pretty
you
wild.
know, you probably don't have this data point, which maybe you should. Is that the closest between two drivers, two places?
Um,
I
you
mean,
mean
that's
like
really close.
in class stuff or
Yeah,
oh yeah, I would think so. Um, I don't think there was anyone that was trying to think back because what I'll typically do is run a formula to figure out, one, how those classes are stacking up. The only other race I think that was that tight, there was one that was no, it was between William and Jordan. It was 0.0013 going into the final day. So
okay.
they had a tight race all week.
So then our second one was in the sixth street race, which was Aaron Schaefer with the 85106 in first place, and second place was Dustin Trance with an 85192. So
Hmm.
the difference there was 0.0086. So not
Yep.
as tight, but still very, very close.
Well, I think like once, like people looking at this data now, it's kind of like the armchair quarterback Monday when these guys are talking, like when you get your talking heads.
Right,
Oh man, they threw for 322 yards and these guys threw for 284. Like it comes, but this is across 5 days of racing because
right,
they raced all week, not we, they raced all week. I mean, it was intense. It was cool sadly, I wasn't there to watch it in person, but watching it at home, I think was just as cool. So,
oh
because
yeah,
that gave me an opportunity to run and do the math. So next year, I'll be running around with my computer or next event, I'll be running around my computer doing the math on site right then, right as we run through the week. So the biggest part of that is, it comes down to what you turn in.
right,
So there's a lot of strategy that goes into that. And that's why I like the real time results for Midwest Drags, which I'm announcing at again, is because if you see, let's say that Aaron Schaefer had turned in his time. Well, Dustin, instead of like, okay, doing the math and stuff, he's like, okay, well, Aaron's locked in at a 5,106. Now I know one, I can beat him if I run an 8,500, or there's no way I can win. Then you can make that decision once the racer turns it in. So real time
right.
results, I think, really change the game. And so I'm excited to be back in the middle of that and see what that does. One, with the lists as well, because there's so much stuff happening behind the scenes on the website that it's by Midwest Drags, we're going to have a crazy, crazy setup. So,
Yeah.
uh,
So talking about the list, we mentioned this earlier, the
mhm.
top 100. So first was Michael Westberg.
Yep,
His time is quite a bit quicker in this first event for this year
yep,
than the last 2 years, what it was after the full year.
yeah. It's pretty intense. So top, Michael Westberg, number one as of right now, 6,464 average on our list. top 100 for 2022, Mr. Bailey, 6,583 from Drag Week. And then top 100 2021, Dave Schroeder, when he won Drag Week with a 6,739. So pretty impressive stuff there. And then, also we have Cooper Bugatti at the number 100 spot with a 10 at 323, which as the year goes, that will fall. I don't think, and everybody make your predictions here in the chat, but I think we will be able to populate an 850 standalone list by the end of the year for national level events. Again, we're going to have 7 national level events this year. So to do that, you have to think about this. You have to have 100 unique racers finish a national drag and drive event. There are 7 national drag and drive events, and they have to have faster than an 850 average. I say unique because one racer cannot populate 2 lists unless they are in 2 cars. So wrap your mind around that. So are there 100 drag and drive racers with an 849 or faster average? That's pretty intense. That's what we need to do next. That's what we'll have for next week, or maybe even this weekend's Drag and Drive news, is what the top 100 number has looked like for the last few years. Because I know it was in the 9s for 2021, and obviously it was barely in the 8s for 2022. And we actually had 4 cars that were not populated on the list. They are an honorable mention between the number 100 and the 900 index type class.
Steve says he bets the top 100 will all be in the 8s this year.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, well, we had top 100 in the 8s last year, so it's going to be really intense. If we don't have cars faster than Aaron Schaefer or faster than an 8,499 average for the top 100, we will not create a top 25 850 list. So keep that in mind, guys. Get these things turned out.
So do you think that Westberg's 6464 will stay the number 1 through the whole year?
No, I really think Bailey, he had a real opportunity, ran a couple 6.0s at Drag Week, and with not completing or DNFing at Sick Week, I think he's going to come back and really attempt Drag Week very hard. If he had ran like a 660 instead of a 680 on day 4 at Drag Week, he would have technically been in the 640s. Okay. So if he can string together some 6.0s for 3 days and have an off day, maybe, I think Westberg is going to be up there most of the year, though, for sure. Because you
mentioned it, it's not the fastest car that's going to be up there. It's going to be whatever one stays together.
Yeah, I mean that's 100%. And that's why Westberg chooses an LS. Will someone do me a favor and tag Jason Hurley and see if we can get him talking in here as well? So Craig Ridnour and Paul Castiglione are talking about NA list. I do have a full NA list for Hot Rod Drag Week historical. I haven't updated for 2022, and I apologize. I will be building an NA list for this year for sure for you guys. Those cars will populate the top 100 or 9 or 10, 11 second, but I'll probably just do a top 25 because by the time you get to the 25th NA car, you're in the 10s. So last NA list is coming.
So last interesting fact here that we hit on every other one, but Bob Hess Jr. wins fastest car of the week without a trailer.
Dude's an animal.
And I don't have his number though. I don't know what that was.
Yeah. Hold on, I'll tell you. It'll take me just a second.
Where can you find that at?
Yeah, you can find that at Dragon.com. He's an 850 car. And when you type in dragondrive.com, it brings you right to the Drag and Drive Racers list presented by Summit Racing. You can pop right here and look in the search let me actually hold on. Let me share my screen and we'll do this. Mr. Lake Speed, I see you there, sir. Hang tight with us just a second. We have run a little long here, and I apologize. Where is my? There it is.
Craig
Lake's like, man,
says
these guys
he's
are just
65
jabbering
now,
on.
but will be out by the end of the year.
Yep. So Bob has, see how easy that was? 7.726 average on sick week 2023.
So that is the fastest car without a trailer.
That'll be some other interesting stuff we'll calculate throughout the year as well. So yeah, so that runs us through all of our interesting facts about that. Again, I have a huge write-up coming for all of that stuff. Jeff McNeil said he just beat us out for fastest without a trailer. I can't believe those guys. When you yard sell like that, that is pretty intense. So that means it's like, I'll explain it to you guys that have never packed everything in your car every day. Essentially, you're going to pack every bit of stuff you're going to need for the entire week. So imagine this: you're on vacation with your family. You load the car up, you drive 8 hours, you get to your stop, you unload the car. Then the next morning, or say 6 hours later, when you're done at the beach, you load everything back up in the car that you brought, and then you drive another 8 to 10 hours after sleeping 3. And then you get to the next spot and you unload your car, and then you reload it up 4 or 5 hours later. And then you do that for a week. It's pretty wild. I don't know why anybody does that. So
I feel like I heard that story last night somewhere.
Yeah. So I was on with the Women's Motorsports Network with Melinda last night talking about that. And then tomorrow night, I'll be on with Mr. Big Glasses, drawing a blank. Help me. Between the Slicks. You didn't tell me. Monday Morning Racer. Sorry. Like I said, it's been a long week. Let's thank one of our sponsors real quick, and then we're going to skip ahead and we'll do the Racing Junk segment at the end so we can bring in Lake Speed so everybody can learn something. I want to thank Molly Motorsports. They are the official pistons of dragandrive.com. The Power Pack piston is a perfect candidate for your drag and drive car. Molly is a team that not only supports the community, but also races with us, like product manager Eric Grillo, who races a 10-second stick shift. That's right, Nova at Hot Rod Drag Week that he has had since almost high school. And he has competed in Rocky Mountain Race Week in his long bed C10 truck. Visit Molly Motorsports for the most recent line of products. All right, guys, I hope you're ready for this. This is, I'm going to bring him in and I'm going to embarrass him because.
All right.
So
bring it on,
Mr. Lake Speed, I want to say thank you for coming on. This is a big win for us because I think what you do can help a lot of these folks, but you're going to have to dumb it down for us, man. Listen, you're probably one of the smartest people I've ever listened to. I've been listening to podcasts of yours. We started this entire conversation because of your Engine Performance Expo. That kind of kicked all of this off. And I think since the Engine Performance Expo, I've listened to, 20 podcasts and some live streams, and I've been all over your channel and stuff like that. I'm really interested in the oil analysis brought to us by like Speed Diagnostic. Dude, that stuff and your knowledge is going to be really cool, I think, for the folks that are watching this that have a car at home and all that. So, Eric, do you want to introduce him and then we'll let him talk about himself too?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is Lake Speed Jr., Total Seals Piston Rings, VP of Sales and Marketing. Is that correct?
I hate titles. Skip all that crap. I'm not much for all that junk. I guess they got to give me something, right? But yeah, yep. I'm a tribologist. That's how I refer to myself, right? Tribology is the study of friction, wear, and lubrication. And as people may or may not know, depending upon what their interest in motorsports was in the 80s and 90s, my dad was a former NASCAR driver.
Yep.
He raced in NASCAR for 20 years. Wow. And then I was fortunate enough myself to work for Joe Gibbs Racing for 13 years. And Mark Cronquist, who's the head engine guy, was my boss. In fact, one of those camshafts back in the background there is a Toyota camshaft out of one of the Toyota Cup motors from Daytona, and I got some DLC coated lifters in here from Charlotte, and those kind of trinkets and stuff. That's what I find enjoying. But to be honest, hey, listen. So we all were talking about Bailey and everything. And it is insane how fast these drag and drive cars are. I remember when Drag Week came through Concord, North Carolina, and they ran at the Z-Max track. Because this is where I live. I live in Concord, North Carolina. That's where I am right now.
Nice.
And I remember we had to go over to Bristol. So I was there at Charlotte in the morning. I think he went like 670 or something. It was like stupid. Like it was like as fast or almost as fast as a pro stock car in Charlotte. And then the son of a gun drives the thing to Bristol in a downpour.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
What the hell is this?
Yeah.
This is cool. Like, all these guys at Total Seal, Hartford is a pro stock racer, and all these guys are pro stock guys and all that. But and my buddy Kevin Studecker, Hollywood and the Wagon of Doom, I've ridden in it. It's pretty damn cool. He's done Drag Week and all that. I could see myself doing this maybe at some point.
Bring it on. Let's go. Let's go.
I mean, this is cool stuff. I like this. I've done Power Tour. That's boring. It's a rolling car show, man. Let's go race something. Yeah. I'm into this deal. And by the way, those Mala Power Pack pistons, that you got to have them. And we actually have some 4032 shelf Power Pack pistons in that Engine Performance Expo LS.
Wow.
Thing makes 1,300 horsepower on 20 pounds of boost.
Let's go.
With shelf pistons. Now, we did upgrade the rings. We got our gas ported rings in it, and that is a big deal, right? Because a lot of the shelf pistons don't have gas ports in them. And with the gas ported ring, now you get all the benefits of gas porting, plus you don't have to worry about the cylinder bores getting worn out. Because the gas ports in the piston are always pushing the same part of the bore, so they tend to wear out a little bit faster, and they can carbon up. With a gas ported ring, it's always spinning around. That way, it's not wearing the same thing out, so it lasts longer. So, really, a great piston ring combination for the drag and drive crowd, because you got to do miles.
I mean,
right.
I think that's what separates this from most everything else. Is these guys, a pro stock car is going to, drive 300 miles a year if they race 20 times. These cars are going to drive 1,000 miles in a week and race every day. So pretty intense. And who knows what they're going to come up. You're talking about Bailey in 1.0 driving through a torrential downpour. This last year they had at Southeast Street Meet, which is an 8th mile event in the Carolinas, pretty close to you. Be a good one for you to get in. They rode in a hurricane. So they had 2 straight days of rain just driving around. So pretty intense. So kind of give us just a little bit. One, we want people to know where to find you. I found you on all the podcasts and stuff like that in your YouTube channel. So you got to tell them what the name of all those. Okay. And then kind of a little bit of history about how you get to where you're at right now and why that jazzes you up.
Sure. So the best way to kind of follow what we're doing, obviously I work for Total Seal, totalseal.com. That one's pretty easy to do. Plus, most people know who Total Seal is. The other part of it that we're going to kind of get into tonight, the technical side, is Speed Diagnostic. Now, it's spelled really weird. So it's speed like normal, but then it's IAGNOSTIX.com. So Speed Diagnostics, and that's oil analysis. And that really goes back to my time at Joe Gibbs Racing. So I'm going to roll back the clock here, and we'll tell a little bit of a story. So from 1992 through 1998, Joe Gibbs Racing had an associate sponsorship from Shell. Mm-hmm. And during that time, we used this called their Motorsports Blend Oil. That we got it in 55-gallon drums. It came out of some research facility in Texas, and life was good. We didn't have any issues. Little fun fact for people who happen to be Tony Stewart fans: Home Depot was not going to be Tony Stewart's sponsor. It was going to be Shell. Now, he was driving the Shell Busch Series car, and then in '99 was Tony's rookie year. It was going to be the Shell Cup car. But in the middle of 1998, oil prices had tanked, and Shell called us up, said, "Nope, we're not going to do this. We have to cut marketing."
Wow.
Fortunately, there's a guy named Bob Nardelli, Home Depot. They were looking to get into NASCAR, and marriage made in heaven. They stepped right into the 20-car deal, and it became the Home Depot thing, and it was great. The only problem for Joe Gibbs Racing was in 1999, we didn't have the Motorsports blend oil anymore, because if Shell Corporate didn't give you a check, you couldn't get it. And Home Depot didn't have Motorsports blend oil. They had cracker station on the shelf, but that wasn't cutting it. We actually lost, I forget how many engines in the shop. It was a lot in the shop. Couldn't get engines off the dyno, just using off-the-shelf motor oil. Now, the crazy thing is this. I remember, like a year or two before that, working at one of the other NASCAR teams, going to the Kmart in Port Orange, Florida, outside of Daytona, and buying every quart of Mobil 1 they had in the shelf and putting in the engine and running it and not having any problems. So we did.
Wow. Yeah.
And that was like 98 that was happening, okay? So here we are, just a year or so later, the Gibbs guys are like blowing up engines left and right when we had to go do all this crazy stuff to try to get through the season. In fact, Bobby Labonte finished second in the championship that year because we had two blown up engines in the race. Both of them were due to failed lifters because of the zinc in the oil. This is literally where the whole zinc in motor oil thing came from, was right then and there, because that's right when the API, which is the American Petroleum Institute, the people that make the little donut in the back of the bottle, they had changed the zinc levels in the oil. So off the shelf stuff didn't work anymore. Now, fortunately, we were a GM team, and GM had this thing called key partners. So they made, Hendrick and Childress and Gibbs and all these guys get together once a month. And the whole thing was, you didn't give away any speed secrets. But GM's whole thing was, hey, to finish first you must finish. If anyone's having a durability problem, it's incumbent on everybody else to help them if you have an answer. So Mark Cronquist, our head engine guy, shows up at one of these GM key partner meetings, and he's talking about the flat tappet lifter deal and all this. And one of the guys from Childress is like, hey, what are you using for oil? And Mark Thomas said, you got to call Lubrizol. We're like, who? Luber what? And they're like, no, you got to call this company Lubrizol. We had the same problem with the stuff from 76. They made some change. And the 76 guys, they said they couldn't fix it. They buy all their additives from some company called Lubrizol. And then they worked with us and they fixed it. Okay. So this is the craziest stuff, man. When this first happened, I was like, are you kidding me? I can't even believe this is real. Think of every brand of oil you've ever seen advertised in your life. It's hundreds at least, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe more. There's only 4 companies on the entire planet that make the additives that go into every brand of fuel and every brand of oil.
Wow.
That's pretty
And refineries don't make finished oil. They make base oil.
Wow.
And not every refinery even makes base oil. Most of them just make gasoline and diesel and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
When you're talking about a synthetic oil, there's only about 5 sources in North America for synthetic base oil.
Wow.
And 4 companies that make the additives. That's it. And none of them are household names. Lubrizol, Afton, Ornite, and Infinium are the 4 companies.
Wow.
That's intense, man.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So we were fortunate at Gibbs that Home Depot, FedEx, M&M's never cared how much money we spent on oil. So
they're like, just make these motors survive.
Yeah, they didn't give a damn. I'm literally looking at an article up here from the Wall Street Journal. I think that was 2009 that I got quoted in the headlines, $10 million just for motor oil. And the reason that came up is because we figured it up. In about an 8-year period, we spent almost $10 million just on testing and development and supply of engine oil for the NASCAR team. 10 million.
Wow.
Man, that is crazy. That is crazy.
Yeah, it was kind of nuts. So we worked with Lubrizol during that time. I mean, these crazy PhD guys, because you're saying I'm smart, dude, I'm a dummy. Bill Abraham, those guys they're really smart guys. Doug Jane used to work for NASA. This guy was a failure analysis engineer for NASA.
See, I think that's what's so cool about the car stuff is because like you put that dude in a room and the level of knowledge is what, like him, Billy Godbold at Comp Cams. I mean, those guys are so smart. Like,
oh God, yeah.
And then they're working on car stuff. I love it. I love it.
And they're all gearheads. They love it. In fact, in 2005, when Tony Stewart won the Brickyard 400, which is his first, Brickyard win, we actually got Brickyard win rings for all the chemists at Lubrizol in that group. We had a little Skunk Works group that did this stuff. They all got Brickyard 400 wins because it was also it was the first race on a brand new formula where we had kind of gone clean sheet and said, okay, we had been doing this for a couple of years. It was really good. We got this new idea. Let's really kind of swing for the fence with something different. And we had run it and done a bunch of testing with it on the dyno, and it looked really good. But that was the first race for it.
Wow.
And we won that race. And I remember because Casey Kane was actually a little bit better through the corners than Stewart was, but Stewart would drag his ass on the straightaways. We were like, yeah,
Right.
So it was cool. So
that is awesome. And I think one of the reasons I really like listening to your stuff is because there's a lot of parts and pieces like that you talk about, like a total package, building a complete. You and Ben Strader talked today, and the thing I listened to was about your entire package being right and picking up. I think you said 300 horsepower in the total seal LS. I'm like, wait, what? What are you talking? So pretty impressive stuff.
We've had, again, the fortune of being able to utilize that NASCAR experience and then have this next chapter in my life out beyond NASCAR, where we begin to take and apply the things we learned in NASCAR to everything else. And it is kind of amazing and neat to see what happens when we do that.
Oh, yeah.
Because sometimes the gains are huge. Sometimes they're incremental, but it's like all the stuff we did works.
Yeah.
And so it's like, keep doing it. It keeps working.
Well, and one of the biggest things for these guys in drag and drive is longevity. Like we've with so many events now, these cars have to work. They have, because it's not just dragging that car to your local racetrack to win a point series. It's, hey, I'm going to drag this car 800 miles and then I'm going to drive it 300 miles away from my truck and trailer, So like these things have to work. And, I just think what you're doing and then what we're going to talk about is the way to get there.
Well, that's really, I was going to say that's where the oil analysis or Speed Diagnostics came from, is that we did this stuff with Lubrizol internally at Gibbs. As we were developing engines and developing the oil analysis was a critical part of it. You didn't do anything. You never ran an engine on the dyno that you didn't take an oil sample if you were working on development of something.
Wow.
Everything went back to the lab. We looked at it and we could see what was going on. It was always part of what we did. Then what happened was, as time goes on, Lubrizol was purchased by Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway Corporation. And then within a couple of years, the company just changed. They went from being an independently owned research company that, made some money, but now they were owned by people who were investment people. They made money. Yeah. And this racing stuff, they weren't interested in anymore. So that's where we started Speed Diagnostics to take care of that need for Joe Gibbs Racing. Even though, so it wasn't there at our supply partner anymore. Mm-hmm. we still needed that same level of detail.
Yeah.
So that's where, I went and made sure, okay, do we have the right equipment? We have a lab, we have technicians, we have the people that can do all that work. And we were fortunate that we also had a great partnership at the time with Timken Bearing. And Timken is based in Akron, Ohio. And I was talking to one of their guys and he said, oh, you should contact this lab. They do work for us because, they have an internal lab at Timken, but if they're doing some evaluation for a customer, there's a problem in the field, you got to have an independent third-party evaluation. So they said, that's who we use. Go to them. I'm like, okay, good enough for you guys, good enough for me. So I talked to them, I explained to them the tests we run, the equipment they needed to buy in order to do the test the way we want them done, because we weren't going to compromise on how we did it. Yeah, we tried some existing labs. They don't run the right stuff. They don't do the right tests. They don't do it the right way. It's funny is that all this stuff, came from the smart guys at Lubrizol. And then over time, I met some other guys. I met this one guy, Bruce Crawley, who is the head of research for Mobil 1 Racing, not for Mobil 1, but for the racing part.
Yeah.
So he handled all the Formula 1 stuff and all that. The exact same test we run are the same tests they run at the racetrack.
Wow. That's cool.
Because you see, F1 cars, they have to go 8 races on a single engine. 8. They do oil analysis at the racetrack. Every time the car comes off the track, they take a sample and they analyze it right there at the racetrack, and they do trend analysis. So they can know when they have a problem way before the car ever starts to tell them there's a problem.
Wow.
Man, why is that a rule? Why do you have to go 8 races on one engine? That's stuff I don't understand.
It's part of the thing they did to try to cost savings.
Yeah.
I mean, because these engines, they call them power units now because they're hybrids, right? To save money so that top teams just didn't bring a brand new one every single week and just wind it to the end, because there is no boost limit in Formula 1.
Wow.
They can run as much boost as they want. They're fuel flow limited.
Wow.
Can you imagine that? Unlimited boost, whatever you want to do. I mean, if they didn't make them run 8 races, they would be one race wonders, and that'd be it. Be popping literally on the finish line every time they go.
Yeah.
So the idea of this is that if you're taking samples from your engine on a regular interval, it's no different than going to the doctor and then taking a blood sample or whatever to know where your health is and all the levels. It's the same thing, and the lab or the lab technicians, and I'm the doctor. I'm the one that looks at all the reports. I mean, literally about 2 hours ago, I was looking over the reports from Daytona for the teams we work with and looking through there. And I'm like, there's a little bit of copper, tin, and lead in these samples. Now they're all almost identical, which is not a bad thing, because if there was an anomaly, usually there'd be only one that would be high, not all 3. So the fact that all 3 were almost identical in that kind of signature of tin and copper and lead, which, by the way, it's bearing materials. Tri-metal bearings, copper, tin, and lead. That's why I'm worried about it. I'm like, is there something going on? We just need to watch this. Not a problem. Just need to keep an eye on it, because if it goes up, then something's going on. So that's where it's incredibly handy. I mean, in fact, one of the NASCAR teams is probably our greatest story, is that those engines they have now, they have to be sealed. So they have to run them more than one race, and they're sealed. And once they're sealed, they can't do anything to them. You can't open them up or anything. So oil analysis becomes one of the main ways to know what's going on in your engine when you can't just yank the head off or pull a camshaft out and look at it. So
you don't ever look at the cam bearings. That's for sure.
See, and that's a great point. See, because that's what I was starting to wonder, if those are brand new engines, and if that was a little bit of cam bearing wear because they're brand new. But I don't know. That one still bothers me. I'm still want to kind of have a few more samples from those guys from that same engines to see if that's something unique. Was that a fresh? I bet they were probably new, fresh engines.
Right.
Oh, that's what I do. Right. If I don't know, I ask them questions. I don't try to tell you. Sami says your bearings are failing. Nah, I don't play that. It's like, let's look at the data. If there's a question that needs to be asked, ask the question. Let's find out. Have a conversation so we can get to the end. Is it something we need to worry about? Or maybe we don't.
Yeah.
But eventually the data will tell you.
Well, and a lot of these guys that race the stuff, they're not afraid to pull an engine and work on it. They're not afraid to touch stuff. And the guys that finish and do so well are the guys that generally build their stuff. And that's why I think what you're doing is so it could provide one more level of insight, because these guys could finish the week, grab whatever ounce of oil you need, throw it in an envelope and send it to you. And then by the time they get home, it's probably to you guys, or it's to you the next week. And then you can be able to tell them, hey, this has a weird look. Well, if your guys like Brian Acton and Jay Blanchard, those guys run that engine for an entire season or maybe more before they freshen it up. Well, now each time they're done with a drag and drive event, they can take that, send it to you guys, and you're like, oh, hey, this has, I would think it's probably particles per whatever of
it's parts per million, right? So we can look at.
So kind of walk us through that, because that's what really intrigues me, because those guys can take that and see, oh man, we're getting more lead and copper and steel in this. What is going on?
Can I share a screen?
Do we want to back up a little bit and let everybody know what Speed Diagnostics really is? And we've been talking about oil analysis and everything, but
we didn't explain what we're talking about. Why do we need to do that?
Why would we even talk about that? So lead us down used oil analysis and why it's important. I think we've kind of been talking about that a little bit. And then one other question I know a lot of folks will have will be turnaround time.
Sure. So essentially, used oil analysis is doing just what you said. You're taking a sample of the used oil, you're putting it in a little container. It's about 2 to 3 ounces of oil, and then you mail it off to the lab, and then you get a emailed report back that tells you what we see in the oil. I can actually give you an example report.
Yeah.
If I can present something here.
Yes,
let me try something here.
Yeah, and that's really one of the biggest reasons you're on. Again, I saw you on the Engine Performance Expo and listened to you talk to a lot of people, and this kind of kept coming back to me, was that I really felt like the community could use this.
All right, here, let me hit present, and I'm going to share a screen. Yep, share a screen. Can I do a window? Let's do this. Boom. Everybody see that now?
There we go.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay. So this is actually from a dyno test we did. So the video hasn't come out yet. We've been working on some new piston ring coatings, and we do a lot of testing out at Shaver Specialty Racing Engines in California. They're good friends. It's just something we fell into 15 years ago, and we've been doing testing out there and have a great little program and do a lot of stuff. So that's where I go. So we decided to do, when we were doing the piston ring coating test, that all the, we'll call it initial dyno testing, looked really, really good on a couple of different coating combinations we had put together between a top ring and oil ring. So we had this new coating for top rings, new coating for oil rings. Yeah, everything looked great. So now comes the boring part. We really have to go run the engine for a long time now to get some durability on it. Then Dyno Don, who's the head dyno guy there, my buddy, was like, hey, why don't we try to make this worse? Why don't we try to speed the process up? And we'll just make it a really bad environment for the rings to see if the coatings can handle it. I'm like, all right, what are you thinking? I mean, I know the old days, right? The guys, they put a Bonami or something, down the carburetor while it's running to get the rings to break in or something like that. He said, why don't we put some Magnaflux dust, powder in the oil? I'm like, that's a great idea, because we can actually take some of that powder. We can put it in the oil. We can weigh it out. I can send in a sample. I can make sure what it looks like new. Then we can run it afterwards. It's like, oh, great idea. So we actually took the sample, and the ISO particle count on the bottom of the screen there, that's geek speak, but I'll give you the real numbers behind it. So the fresh oil out of the drum had 404 particles greater than 4 microns in size in the oil. We put in 5 grams of Magnaflux powder into 5 quarts of oil, and it went to 22,000 particles greater than 4 micron in the oil.
Holy cow.
That's intense.
So we poured this stuff in the engine, and we ran the engine for an hour, making full power runs every 10 minutes. And I'm going to tell you, I have never been more nervous behind the dyno control of an engine than that one, because I was ready for the rods to go out the side at any moment. I mean, every single run, I'm just Hawkeye looking at the oil pressure, because I'm like, if that oil pressure starts to drop, I'm hitting the stop button, because I don't want to scatter this thing, because we have no idea if this is a good idea or a bad idea. We were just going to try it. And so we're running just our standard oil Wix filter we always run. We run it the whole hour. Engine never lost a single horsepower the entire hour.
Wow. Took
a used oil sample, and you can actually see it right here. So 6080. So this SDS 0679, that's the fresh oil. And you can see that the particle count was a 16, a 15, and a 12. Now, every time one of those numbers goes up, it means the number of particles doubled. So It's an exponential increase to go from 16 to 22.
Wow.
Then you ran that filter and it dropped down to 19.
Wow.
So it went from 22,000 particles in the oil to 4,000 particles in the oil in 1 hour with that Wix filter in there. Now you can see the fuel dilution went up. The other things were going crazy in there. But hey, it's a dirty environment, right? Yeah. The silicon's mainly just from the RTP putting it back together. So then all we did was drain all the oil out. We poured a couple of quarts of oil through the engine, just a fresh, clean oil to flush it out a little bit. We put on a wire screen filter. Now, the micron rating of that Wix filter was 25 microns. Oh, sorry, 27 microns. The wire screen filter was a 35 micron filter. We put in that oil, and you can see they had the exact same ISO numbers, the 22, 21, 18. Had 22,000 particles in it when we analyzed it. Ran the engine for an hour. It lost 10 horsepower in 1 hour. And as you can see, it filtered basically nothing out of it. That rating didn't change. So, but this is what an oil analysis report can tell you. We can see the number of particles in the oil. You can see all the wear metals down there. You can see the iron, the chromium. That's going to be, if it's a chrome ring, copper, tin, lead, that's again bearing material, aluminum, manganese. If you're running an octane booster, you're going to pick that up. If you're running, more modern seats and guides, you can pick some of that up. If you're having a problem, of course, titanium retainers. So that gives you what's going on in terms of the equipment health. If you look back up the page, then you've got all the additives in the oil, the calcium, sodium, magnesium, the phosphorus, the zinc, the moly, the boron. Those are all the main additives that are in the oil. But then the real important thing is up there with the fuel dilution and all the other contaminants. I'll say this, that in 99 times out of 100, when we see a high wear problem in an engine, there's high fuel dilution in the engine. So one of the tests that we run is called, they call it gas chromatography. So most labs will just use what they call flashpoint to estimate how much fuel is in the oil. The problem with that is, depending upon what oil you're running, what kind of fuel you're running, it will change that flashpoint. So it doesn't really tell you how much oil, or how much fuel is in your oil.
Right.
Gas chromatography actually looks at the number of fuel molecules in the oil and counts them and tells you, oh, you have 6.98% fuel in the oil. And you know it's a fact. That's how much is in there.
Yeah. So how is, explain why that is so detrimental to someone's engine and bearings and things like that.
Well, you can already see right here that the one that the highest fuel dilution had the lowest viscosity. So viscosity is the most important characteristic of a lubricant. It's what is keeping things separated. It's the first line of defense. So when you dilute the viscosity of the oil, you're diluting its ability to do its job. And what's really important in engine performance is oil isn't just a lubricant between the piston ring and the cylinder wall. It's also the gasket. So on Monday, we were on the dyno with one of my dad's engines, the brother to the engine that we picked up 300 horsepower on, doing some work on that one. And it was interesting that we made a jet change, went down 2 jets. We pulled about 18 pounds per hour of fuel out of the engine. And you could see on the crankcase vacuum, it went up a couple of tenths, making that change.
Wow.
It wasn't a huge change, but you could see when we were doing all the jet changes on that engine that when you put more fuel to the engine, vacuum went down. Less fuel to the engine, vacuum went up. Why is that? It's because the liquid fuel that's going down that runner, I mean, it's atomized, but it's still liquid, is washing the fuel or washing the oil off the wall. So if you're running methanol or something like that, or running big injectors, a way to protect your engine is to make sure that you have the right viscosity oil, you have the right tune-up, right surface finish on the cylinder wall, back to that combination thing. Mm-hmm. It's not one lever you're going to pull. It's about creating a combination that can provide better longevity for your engine, more consistent performance for your engine. And what used oil analysis does, it gives you data, no different than having a race pack in the car to know what's going on. This is a race pack for the health of your engine, is what this is.
That's pretty awesome.
Well, and here's the cool thing. You mentioned about the question about timing. Okay, so for $70, you get your results back in 7 days.
Wow.
For $130, you get your results back in 3 days. I mentioned today's Wednesday, right? Mm-hmm. So those guys raced this past weekend. They mailed their samples on Monday. They got their results today. That's normal turnaround. They pay for that, but you can get it if you need it.
Well, so here's the biggest thing. Based on a survey we did earlier, guys are driving 600 or 700 miles to go to these events. They could literally make the last pass of the weekend. They could take a couple. So, sorry, this made me think of something else. So they could take a sample at the end of the week and show it to you. Could they pull samples during the week as well? Like it's
absolutely.
So you could almost do one the end of day 1 and then the end of day 5. Package those up, send them on Friday because they're going to pass some FedEx or something like that. Send them to you guys on Friday when an event's over, and then drive home and have that. If they did the rapid deal, they could have it by Tuesday or Wednesday of the next week.
Well, put it this way. So if it's a 5-day event, right, you can buy what's called our shop kit that has 6 samples in it. That has 2 mailers. It's $250. Then you take a sample of your fresh oil, which you started off with, right? That way, hey, this is what was brand new.
Yeah.
Then a sample from each day after each day's drive and racing. Mm-hmm. End of the day, Friday, you put it all in the thing, drop it in the mail. Mm-hmm. A week later, when you get back, you're going to get an email that has your entire history of that week, and you can see what's going on. And if there's something happened, like, oh yeah, I knew I ran a little bit lean, or I heard the thing do something weird on that one run that day, and you see something pick up on that day, then you know that's where it came from.
That's pretty cool. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons I wanted you on today is that right there, because you can, as we move towards a higher level of racing, not necessarily faster racing, but a higher level, these guys are needing to keep these engines together a lot longer. You'll have to do this kind of stuff. And a lot of guys change the oil in the middle of the week just because, or they'll change it twice during the week if they're a really fast car, they've got it real loose or something like that. So they could take this and they could really end up with a lot more visibility, a lot more data, because that's what we're looking for. We're trying to find how to make this car live.
Right. I mean, ultimately the goal of used oil analysis is having a greater understanding of what your engine wants.
Yeah.
So it's a way, I mean, every engine is trying to tell you what it wants. It's talking. Every time it runs, it's talking. This is another way of listening to the engine and figuring out, okay, what is it like for the viscosity of the oil? What is it like for the hone? What is it like for the tune-up in terms of the fuel? It's going to tell you all this kind of stuff. Then you may find that you don't need to change the oil during the middle of the week. That's wasting your time. You could maybe possibly get a certain type of oil, right viscosity, tune-up and all this kind of thing, where you can run the whole week and you never have to change the oil because you have data that tells you you don't need to change the oil. Well, now that's, another case of oil less in the car to mess with, less time to change it. And how do you get rid of the oil and all that? It could save yourself a lot of work potentially.
Well, sorry, go ahead, Eric.
I was just going to say, so how often would you recommend these drag and drive drivers doing these oil analysis?
Every time.
Well, no, I mean, I think that it can be overwhelming when you're first getting into it, and you don't want to have data overload. Mm-hmm. So let's say if you're a car that runs all week on your oil now, you don't change it, then okay, run a week, take a sample, send it in. It's always good to have a comparison of what the new oil was, just to know, because there's so many different oils out there. You see, you get what's called a dual kit that has 2 sample bottles in one kit. Send in a sample of the fresh, send in a sample of the used. Let's look and see what the comparison is. And let's say you do, 7 events over the course of the year. We'll just take a used sample after each event. So you'll have your one new sample at the beginning with the used. Take a used sample at the end of all the events, and then just begin with data collection. Yep. Don't try to jump to the answer. Just begin to gather information and see what it tells you where it lands. Then maybe for next year, you're like, okay, well, I saw some things here that I need to work on. So maybe next year I'm going to do it differently with maybe my filter or with the fuel I'm running or whatever it is that you're choosing to do. And then you may take samples at a more closer intervals, maybe every day or something like that, depending upon what you're attempting to try to manipulate with the car over the course of the week. Now you can see it and you can break it up and see that progression, and see it's no different than any other sensor you put on your car, and how often you want to take the data and how you want to slice and dice it. It's just going to give you a data stream that you can begin to use to make good decisions.
Wow, man, that's pretty cool. And I think that's why my brain really enjoys this.
That's because it's all the data and you like data. So
yeah.
Well, it is. It's a data junkies rabbit hole. Just fair warning, but you can see things like, let's say you're debating what fuel you should run. Well, think about this, our engines don't burn liquid fuel. We were talking about the fuel has to vaporize. It's the job of the injector, job of the carburetor to atomize the fuel, but it's everything else that actually turns it into a vapor. if you change the vapor pressure of your fuel, you're going to see it show up in the fuel dilution. That's one reason why there is such high fuel dilution on those samples, is because we used to run pump gas, go to the mobile station around the corner, buy the 91 octane. But then what happened was last summer, because there was such a shortage of fuel, that's why fuel prices were so high, because there was a shortage. The government issued waivers that allowed the fuel marketers to put more than 10% ethanol in pump gas last year. So last summer we had record amount of ethanol in our fuel system, and they weren't monitoring and checking how much ethanol was in the fuel in the tank. And we saw it on our little engine. 15 years of running the same small block, doing the same tests, and you're like, whoa, why are we suddenly off 8 horsepower now? This is nuts. And then we ended up changing and going away from pump gas. In the summer, we found a VP fuel we could use that would mimic pump gas. Well, the problem is we ran this test in January.
Yeah.
Where it's 30 degrees colder than it was in the summer. But we still have summer blend fuel.
Yeah.
That's why the fuel dilution was so high.
Man,
Wow.
that's crazy. Like just the level of thought into that.
This is the level of detail you can get to if you're taking notes on what you're doing and you're consistent in your process, so that you're not changing more than one thing at a time. You can sit there and you can see anything that changes, boom, it just jumps off the page at you, and you can know.
Yeah. And
I'll tell you this, here's a little tip for everybody. Stop using titanium retainers, because titanium retainers are going to wear your engine out. We can see it in the oil analysis that every time someone runs a titanium retainer, I know they're light, I understand why you want to use them, I get it. But titanium is going to create wear metals in the oil. Your filter is not going to catch all of them, and it's going to increase the wear overall. Every person that's ever used our service that runs titanium retainers sees it. And then I had the fortunate situation where I had one guy that he basically had the same spec engine, so same short block, same heads, but this one he had tie retainers on it. The other engine had steel retainers on it, and we had samples on both engines. He's like, "Oh my God, they're like night and day difference." I'm like, "Yeah, it's the tie retainers." He's like, "Are you kidding me?" I'm like, "I'm dead serious. It's all the Gibbs."
That's awesome.
We stopped doing it for that reason.
Wow.
And he's like, "I'm going to try out." He did a couple more times. He's like, "Oh my God." Yeah. So I mean, if you're really looking for longevity, you do the Jenny Craig version of the steel retainer. It's a better option than the big heavy, this one's got mass to it. Yeah. But there's a problem with that though.
Wow.
That's such good information for this group of people watching too.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Well, I was telling a guy yesterday, I was on his show, that, I'm a racer. My dad was a racer from the time I was born. I mean, he was racing go-karts, traveling across the country, not racing for money, just racing for pride.
Yeah.
So those guys did in the 60s and the 70s. And, he was a national champion and all that. And so I just grew up around this. And then he went to NASCAR, and then we had our own race team. So I pushed a broom in the shop and wanted to be an engine guy as a kid and work on cars. And then, was fortunate enough to work for a couple of NASCAR teams, and really fortunate to work for Joe Gibbs and be part of the engine program there during arguably the best time ever. The mid 2000s when money was not an object. You can do whatever you want. One of the ways how you can get the $10 million in motor oil is at the end of each season. Back then, all of the backup engines for Talladega, there's 2 plate races a year, right? Or 4, two tracks. You got Daytona and Talladega. The last restrictor plate race of the year is Talladega in October. Well, there's no way in hell you're bringing those backup engines to Daytona for the 500 the next year. So every year I got 3 or 4,
wow,
sometimes 5 backup plate engines just to do oil testing on. They were $105,000 each.
Nice.
It was my privilege to pour whatever weird oil I wanted to in them, and then run a full AVL dyno session on it, do a race simulation, and then do oil analysis on it to see what it did.
Yeah.
I was the luckiest person in the whole wide world.
Oh, dude, I can't imagine. And I think that's, I've watched a couple of your videos, I keep going back to that, but like you did, is Amazon oil good? Is why buy this oil? Things like that. And I think a lot of people could learn a ton of the stuff from the Speed Diagnostic YouTube channel. And then I'm sure, I don't know. I have enjoyed the days of listening to your podcast with very smart people. It's been a ton of fun.
And you have a lot of that information right on your website too.
Yeah.
So with all those different oils and the testing that you did and the results, which I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you. We try to make it where someone wants to go there and read or watch the videos, they can. It kind of gets an idea of what we can do. And I was at a Porsche tech conference over the weekend talking, and one of the guys like, well, so who actually does the analysis? I mean, is it like an AI? Who's actually doing the report? I'm like, it's me.
I'm typing in these numbers in this Excel spreadsheet.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I have the lab sends us the numbers. My 2 sons help me out. My one son does all the shipping. He packages in all the kits and puts them together and ships them. The other son takes all the data and puts it in the spreadsheets and all that kind of stuff. And then I have my my templates that I use where I have some built-in logic. Like I know how I think. Yep. So I've already taught Excel how to think the way I think.
Yep.
But then I double check myself. So I look at what it's telling me, and then I make adjustments to it. So it begins as a template with copy and pasted data from the lab, but then I spend time looking at it, and then I'll make adjustments based on what I see, knowing what the application is and knowing what fuel they're running. And I just look at the whole thing and I put it together, make my notes, hit send.
That's pretty cool. That's really neat to be that involved in all that stuff. And hopefully we end up,
like it.
Well, that's
the reason I do
it. Yeah.
So is it just you and your 2 sons
Yeah.
Is that it?
That's cool.
That's it. The Speed Diagnostics consists of me and my 2 sons. When we first started it, it was their older sister. My daughter, she was doing it and she was helping me. Then she decided to go back to school, which is great for her. Yep. She's making 4.0. She graduates in May and is doing fantastic. But I was really proud of her to spend a couple of years, 3 years with me doing this. And it was great education for her. And she was a great help. And now my boys are old enough that, they're helping me now, and it's a good experience for them. Yeah. So I appreciate being able to have a family business that's not huge, because obviously Total Seal is my day job. It keeps me plenty of busy doing that. And I love doing that. But this is a fun little thing that, keeps me still clued in to the oil business and keeps a finger in there without having to be someone that sells oil. Because I love the driven products. The Joe Gibbs story was great. We had a really great run. It's still good stuff. But I was ready for another chapter in my life. So I'm glad that I made a change, but this still keeps me where I can scratch that oil technical itch a little bit.
Right. I do want to say, Vinny Barbone said, I'm sure I can speak for all of us when I say we appreciate everything you do for motorsports and the motorsports development. So that's really cool. You. And those guys push that's a Geo Tracker in that picture with a blown small block Chevrolet, and it's a pretty wild truck for sure. So they're a great couple.
Have you worked with any drag and drive racers in the past?
Kevin Studecker. Kevin's my buddy,
Awesome.
and at Total Seal. So when he was first getting into it, we did that, right? I was still at Driven at the time, but we did that. We looked at what was going on and, adjusted what oil he was running, what viscosity he was running, and things like that to get his car to be able to do what it needed to do. And then obviously me and Ben Strader are really good buddies, so we work a lot together on a lot of things.
I think it'd be fun to for those guys to go back to, because a lot of it times people use the oil they use because their engine builder told them, use this weight or this setup or something like that. And a lot of times that's done from experience, but you are providing an opportunity for maybe somebody to gain a few more horsepower here and there by changing to a different viscosity or a different fuel setup or something like that.
One of the biggest things we've seen with oil viscosity, and not so much you're trying to gain power, because a lot of times when you have a boosted application or something, you got plenty of power, but oil temperature and operating temperature, that oil level is a huge thing. I would highly recommend, because we could sit here and spend 10 minutes talking about it, but it's not as impactful as going to the Engine Performance Expo website and find the video that me and Ben Strader did at this last expo on oil level.
Okay.
Because if you're running a wet sump engine, man, you really, really have got to look at your oil level. And if you got an oil pan that makes you run a bunch of oil in it, you need to be careful, right? Watch it, because I'll tell you right now, we lost almost 70 horsepower by putting in, went from 5 quarts of oil in a 10-quart pan to 7 quarts of oil and lost 15 horsepower.
Wow.
Then we added 2 more just for fun, because we were looking at oil pressure. We just looked at oil pressure. Okay, we started off down here. You made a run. What did the oil pressure do? Right? Oil pressure would dip when you're running the 5 quarts of oil. All right. Put in 2 quarts of oil, put it to 7. Okay. Well, now it doesn't just crash, but there's a little dip at the very end. All right. Let's fix that. Put 2 more quarts in it. Well, now oil pressure is rock solid in this wet sump LS engine, but it costs us 67 horsepower to do that.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Now, here's the thing. That's 67 horsepower on a run. I can tell you from running the little engine at Shavers, when you have that oil level too high, it's going to bring up your oil temperature probably 10 to 15 degrees. That migrates over into your water temperature. Mm-hmm. So for a drag and drive deal, back to Eric and the Mala Power Pack pistons, you want a thinner ring package. A thinner ring package will run cooler driving down the highway. And don't tell me you can't run thin rings with boost. That the Engine Performance Expo LS with those off-the-shelf power pack pistons with a 1 millimeter, 1 millimeter, 2 millimeter ring setup in it, we made the last day 13 runs at over 1,250 horsepower.
Dang.
And we're doing in-cylinder combustion analysis on all 8 cylinders. So if we hurt any ring, any cylinder, we'd have known it.
Yeah.
And we didn't.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So you don't need a 16-16-3/6. By God, no one needs a 564 3/16 ring in the engine. You don't need it. A 1.2 millimeter ring is pretty daggum thick. Which if you want to be safe, run a 1-2-1-2-3. Yeah. Run a steel ring, do that. It will run cooler. When we did that engine at Shavers, we did a test and we ran the engine steady state for an hour with a fixed load, with a fixed throttle setting, with a fixed coolant flow. A 16th, 3/16 ring package was 25 degrees hotter on the oil and 10 degrees hotter on the water. And at the end of that test, the oil filter with the 16th, 16th, 3/16th ring, the label on the oil filter looked like a shrinky dink. It actually started to shrink. And it fell off actually when we were taking the engine apart.
Wow.
Then we went to a 0.7 millimeter ring. So 0.7, 0.72. Right. I'm not saying do that. Not saying do that. But the temperatures came way down. Going from the 16th ring to a 0.7, because it cut it in half, right?
Yeah.
But the point being is, if you go from a 16th ring down to a 1 millimeter ring, you're still probably going to run 20 degrees cooler on the oil. Maybe 5 degrees or so cooler on the water. Well, when you're having to do this kind of driving on cars that are like this, man, that's margin of error right there. You got to have that.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It's free.
Yeah, and that's just a ton of increased, wear and tear and all that stuff on the engine. If you're running, 5 degrees doesn't sound like a whole bunch, but over a week, that's a long time, and latent heat that comes from that and all that kind of stuff. So,
yeah.
Well, back to the oil analysis and the 16th, 16th, 3/16th ring versus the 0.7, 0.72 millimeter ring. Of course, we run the engine. We take oil samples every time we run the engine. That's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
There was 52% less iron and wear metals in the oil from the 0.7 millimeter ring combination versus the 16th ring combination.
Wow.
If you do the math, an 027 ring is 52% smaller than a 16th ring.
Wow. So it's wearing the same. It's just you have less material to wear. That's cool. And then there's less of that stuff cycling through between your cushion of oil that you can't even see the the part of. Well, listen, I want to say thank you for coming on. This, I don't know if you know this or not, but this won't be the last time you're on here.
All right, good.
Yeah, we'll twist your arm again in the future, because I think this has been a lot of fun as we get more technical and as we bring a lot more knowledge to these guys that are in the drag and drive community, and more people come into it that we're going to see this year. I think services like yours at Speed Diagnostic and your knowledge level is really going to help people create more longevity in these engines.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, I think oil analysis is something that everyone that has an expensive engine, an engine that means something to them, that's mission critical, you should do. Whether you use Speed Diagnostics or you use, Caterpillar or somebody else, you do something, right? Do it versus do nothing, because you're going to gain data. Are we more expensive than everybody else? Yes, we are. But the reason it's more expensive is that you get the results back faster, and I'm the one that's giving the results. I'm not. Those guys don't know a wrist pin from a retainer when it comes to a race engine.
Yeah.
No knock on them. They do diesel stuff. They do industrial applications. I don't know that stuff. They know that stuff. For these kind of applications, what you pay extra is for the turnaround time and for my expertise. That's what you get from it. But whether you choose to make, if that's not the value proposition you want to do, that's fine. You can look at anyone can do trend analysis themselves, right? If you got an Excel spreadsheet, you can take the data from Caterpillar and trend it all out and figure it out for yourself. That doesn't take a rocket scientist to do that, but it's better to do it than not to do it.
Yeah, you got to have the data before you can do the trend analysis, though. So get the data first.
Yeah, you got to build it all up and then start looking at what it's telling you.
Yeah, it's exciting. If someone is in the chat or watching this later, please comment down below and let us know when you're going to start doing this, because I would love to follow along. I know I have talked to Hyde that runs Midwest Drags. He's got a 55 Chevrolet that he's going to start racing this season and things like that. And so we're talking about this. We talked about him because that motor's been in the car for like 5 years. And with him getting it out now, he's like, I think I want to do a fresh oil and send it in, have him do the diagnostic, and then let's take it to an event and run it for like a regional event or weekend event, and then do it again and see what happens. Because he's like, I've driven this car 800 miles or 1,000 miles in 5 years. Like, it's time to, now that I'm going to start putting a ton of miles on it and beating on it, I got to know if there's anything that I need to be looking for. So it'd be really cool. I'm excited. So if anybody else is planning to do this, please let me know. Mike@dragondrive.com is my email. And obviously, Speed Diagnostics.com.
I know it's hard to say. It's like, who came with that dumb name? I was an idiot.
Hey, definitely go in there, and I'm sure all the email and contact and purchase the kits and things like that is all there. And
it's all there. Pretty simple, I think.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Well, man, thank you so much again for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I'm
glad I was able to listen to what y'all were talking about. When you started talking about the NA list, I was wondering, like, how fast are the NA guys? You know, and then you mentioned I go like 9s. Okay, that's pretty good. But it's still insane for me to think that you're talking about guys running 6.0 and then driving on the street. That's just that's crazy.
Well, and Doc McIntyre in his '68 Camaro 770s out of a NA big block. I mean, that's pretty intense. Yeah. So, and it's a big block Power Glide. I don't think he has a gear vendors on that car. So it's just, and those guys, I think you would have a ton of fun talking to Doc and Jeff because of, they're talking about revolutions. Like, I think they did put a Power Glide or a gear vendors on this year so they could just limit the revolutions. That's right. His whole goal. He's like, it's not about being at a lower RPM to drive on. He's like, it's about turning that motor less during the week of when we're driving it. So
every time that spring cycles, he gets one more closer to death.
Well, and how NA stuff, it's the only way to make more power is to put more air in. To put more air in, you gotta have a bigger valve train and things like that. And bigger valve train and means weirder angles and things like that. So that's why those are back there, right? It's I love the NA world, right? But it's kind of cool when you can kind of put some things together and run boost with high RPM stuff. That's something that Ben and I really want to do is boosted 10K just sounds like fun to me. I want to see an engine running boost at 10,000 RPM. There's a lot of there's a lot of talk about that with like LS stuff and doing the small crank and a longer rod and then really turning the RPM up I like the idea because you could run a lot larger turbo because you're that much more airflow. Anyways, we could talk for a couple hours. Let's talk about where you're going to be this year. What are there any events that people can catch you at? Things like that.
Oh yeah. So we do these, we call them trackside tech talks at the NHRA event. So if anyone's headed down to the Gator Nationals, we will on Friday and Saturday, me and Ed Keebler from Rottler will be doing trackside tech talks at Matt Hartford's pit. You can also get to see a Pro Stock car up close too. So that's going to be Gainesville's the first one this year. We're also going to be doing a hands-on honing class, modern honing with modern rings, trying to have better surface finishes for boosted applications and things like this for better durability. It's a big part of it is how do you make a more durable surface that still can run. We're going to do one of those in April at Ben Strader's place. Cool. And then we're going to do another one in Bristol right before the NHRA race in June.
Cool. Awesome.
And I think you can go to EFI 101 to get information on those hands-on honing classes because it's going to be literally, hey, here's how you do it. Here's exactly what kind of abrasives you need with this kind of block to get the valley you need, what the finishing operations are, using the profilometer, going through all that kind of stuff. It's not just theory. We're going to do it, and you're going to be able to see it hands-on. So there'll be two of those. Then we also have a trackside tech talk at Indy in the Big Go in September. We'll also do one here in Charlotte for the second NHRA race. And then we're also going to do Maple Grove in the fall. So a lot of the stuff's going to be in the fall, but the hands-on hunting classes, that'll be this spring and early summer.
That's great. Well, awesome. Well, thank you very much. Again, I look forward to the next time you're on. My brain already is expanding and thinking of stuff. So I've got to put you backstage or I'm going to keep talking to you. So we can go on with this show. We've got to talk about what we found on Racing Junk and all that kind of cool stuff. So, okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Dude, that was so cool, man.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight because like my brain is already tired. I want to do it on my daily driver Saturn. You know what I mean? I want to do it before and after I run to the drag and drive events and the drag and drive pursuit van that's coming.
I mean, I don't know if you've paid attention to any of the notes, but we had a lot of questions and we didn't have enough time to get to them. I mean, yeah, we've got many questions that we'll definitely be back for a second.
Oh yeah, and the cool thing is like he has so much knowledge and opportunity to teach us that it's really unlimited how much he can discuss. I really want to push people that are following this to go find the podcasts, find the videos and things like that he talks about this. It really is a ton of internal knowledge that he brings. So
yeah, I mean, look at the one piece of information: don't run titanium retainers.
Yeah, and I mean, right now there's probably 30% of the people in the comments or that are watching this that have titanium retainers because somebody told them to do that. And really, when you think about it, we look at race car stuff, and how many miles do you really intend to drive something before you're going to upgrade it? Not necessarily break it, but before you're gonna, oh man, pull it apart and refresh it and stuff like that.
And then the second bit of information was just the thinner rings in the cooler engine. Like, I mean, that's not stuff that I knew. So those are just two nuggets that I got tonight. And I'm sure there's a whole bunch more that he's got that we could get out of him.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think what would be fun is to lean into some of that with some, I'm a junkyard LS guy most of the time. So, can you take a junkyard LS and add some parts and pieces here and there and do a few things that help save life? I don't know. One thing I do want to say before we get any further is that we're excited to have the team at Sweet Patina on board as the Built for Drag and Drive sponsor for 2023. Listen, there's so many cars that are being built for drag and drive right now. This is the perfect time for them. And these TKO hand cleaning wipes. I don't know if anybody saw the videos while I was at sick week for those 2 days. Dude, I was running around they have these little packets that are like 2 inside each packet. I was throwing them at people and had some decals to hand out and stuff. If you guys don't already have your TKO hand cleaning wipes, you need to do it. You can order with code DND57, get 10% off your entire order because they offer so much more than just TKO hand cleaning wipes. Those are my favorite, but they have the happy ending spray. They have this skeet sauce, which is a nut buster, break loose thing, instead of like PB Blaster. This is another great opportunity there. Sweetpatina.com and use code DND57 at checkout. So, all right.
Yep. And you got to have those hand wipes for when you're going to the junkyard. So I'll definitely have to jump on there and get some before junkyard season comes. And I need a Go Fast Parts Before Paint sticker.
Dude, I'm telling you, that's my favorite shirt. I wear that shirt at least once a week. At least once a week. So, dude, let's talk about what we found on racingjunk.com.
Yeah.
Because listen, Racing Junk is the official buy-sell trade classifieds for drag and drive. I'm always on there now. If I have a few minutes, if I'm not on social media, I'm on Racing Junk because some like the cars we found this week, I feel like there's some deals that are out there right now. It's kind of wintertime. Guys are making some changes. There's some engines that are available and stuff like that. And I think we're going to start seeing some drag and drive trailers on there. And I've really been trying to twist my brother's arm about building some drag and drive trailers for us. One, I need a trailer that I'm going to be pulling to all these events and things like that behind the drag and drive pursuit rig. So I need a golf cart and I need a trailer for it. So did you ever get your stuff working or do you want me to pull it up?
I haven't checked. I don't think so.
Okay. I'll pull it up here. Yeah, dude. So let's talk about the car you chose for this week. Can you see that? Is that up? I can't. I can't both screens at the same time.
Yep.
Tell us why this car.
So first of all, we went through all the class winners, and there was 3 class winners from Sick Week, all 68 Camaros. So clearly, I could pick up this 68 Camaro for $21,000, drop a LS in it, and be right up there with Westberg, right?
Yeah, dude. I mean, that's the way it works. Like at least with Clint Sadowski, You may not be able to beat Westberg, but you could run with Clint Sadowski. I think he's got a big inch LS in that car too. This car looks like it's a street car. Like I mean, is that an aftermarket hump or is that like factory floor pan type stuff? I'm just trying to think like super street, things like that. This car could work for. This looks like a pretty nice build here. It's like
Yep.
it's got some nice parts and stuff like that. And
So this
any
was
more?
my choice for this week's Racing Junk. Again, 68 Camaro roller, 21 grand.
Oh yeah, hey, he's got a Power Glide and a 468 that could go with it for some more money and all that kind of stuff. So this car is in Jackson, Georgia. So we're kind of all over the country today too. This looks like a really nice car, man. Good find on that deal. Let's get off of the engine pick and we'll go to the pick of the car. That's pretty
I love
cool.
that look.
Yeah, I love the smaller tire here. It looks like a radial in the back or a 275 style size, maybe a 28 and a half.
And just saying, the two cars I got in the background, if I sold those, I could go pick up something like this.
Yeah, dude, you could probably buy that roller if you sold both of those.
I'm
kidding. I'm kidding. No, you got cool cars. One of my cars this week, I actually chose two, is this 65 Malibu 21.5. This car runs and drives. I mean, ready to go. Aluminum headed 383.
We can't see it.
Oh, really?
No, I still see the 68 Camaro.
That's weird. Hold, please.
It sounds really good. Your car sounds really good.
Yeah, hang on just a second. Let's see. Let's stop that screen and let's grab the. Oh, I know what I did. Yep. See, I'm learning. Hey, it's the way it works right here. Here we go. Because they're on different tabs. Yeah, the 65 Malibu. Can you see it now?
Yep.
Geneva, Alabama, 21.5. Dude, this car runs and drives and looks good. The only thing I have about this car is it only has one picture, so I can't see inside or anything like that. I feel like this car would be perfect for somebody that is wanting to maybe get into this kind of stuff. It's got a new fuel system, Power Glide trans, Ford 9-inch, got a 513 gear, which would suck. So you're definitely gonna have to change that. Maybe make it a 351 gear, just move those numbers around. But it's got 3114s on the back. So, big tire car, but it doesn't look like it's got a big tire on it there. So I don't know. I love this body style. I love the long trunks. Big booty cars are kind of my jam. Two-door, cool paint, stuff like that. 21.5, I feel like that's probably a deal. I don't know. It's in Alabama.
My car was 21 with a roller and yours is 21 running. So
yeah,
I think you might have a better deal there.
Right. Let's jump into my last part here for Found on Racing Junk. This one is fun because all you got to do is drive your truck up there, dude. Like 67 Camaro. I think if you have a first gen Camaro, you're going to win races.
I think
that's
so.
the way it works. Yeah. Trailer included, 20 grand, runs and drives. It looks like a pretty decent car. Let's see. Let me get here to my arrows. I mean, it looks like it's got probably needs a dash pad, and the wiring needs a little bit of cleanup. There's probably some speed to be had there, but first gen Camaros are pretty hard to come by. But it is a stock floor pan car, which is always what I look for because again, I love super street and street race stuff. So you got to have stock floor pans for a lot of those. So it looks like 850 cage, pretty easy car. I kind of like the Survivor paint feel to it. Small block Chevrolet, looks like at one time it had some really nice parts on it. Carb looks clean, but the rest of it kind of looks, kind of like what you'd expect from a $20,000 first gen Camaro. That includes a $2,000 trailer. But
so we picked some pretty similar cars here today.
Yeah, and I think the reason being is because I want people to be able to grab stuff, and what we showed last time on the last Found on Racing Junk was expensive stuff. I think it had a $70,000 or $80,000 car. So
yeah, we had Westberg's S10, and then we had a G-body wagon.
Yep. So I guess we had some inexpensive stuff. I'm interested to see, because our friends at Racing Junk have been amazing to us. They have shared in almost every newsletter that's gone out, kind of a banner ad for the Drag and Drive brand. So I would love it if folks would bounce over there. I really think to be honest, there's a lot of really cool stuff over there. There's not just cars, obviously that's what we're always looking for, but there's trailers, there's RVs, there's campers, there's all that stuff. So as we grow as a brand and I begin to look at RVs, that's the first place I'm going to go. So
Yeah.
I wish I could get me a toter home, kind of like Clark Rosenstengel or Ryan Hargett and all those guys. So pretty cool
Hey,
stuff there.
couple more sponsors and you might be there.
A couple more years, maybe. I will tell you the plan is to end up with some kind of minivan for the rest of the year. And me and Matt Zelenko slept in that Toyota or Chrysler Town and Country, I think it was, or Chrysler Pacifica last week for one night. And I had slept in it Monday night. And I have decided that I'll bring in air mattress next time because the seats are not the best sleeping seats that are out there. So, anyways, what haven't we covered this week, dude? I feel like we've covered a lot. I love that Lake was on. That was really a cool experience.
Yeah,
And
it was a really
I
good
know
episode.
he was over our head most of the time. So
Yeah, me for sure, but
well, one thing we didn't talk about was merch. We are ready to go for the year. We have hats, hoodies, t-shirts, license plates, and listen, I'm laying it out right now. We have new white Drag Drive Addiction decals. If you have purchased a Drag Drive decal that was the black that had the layer over it, reach out to me. I'm going to make you a deal on the white or black vinyl cutouts. So, obviously those are hard to see on tinted windows and darker colored cars. So we have white and then also a black vinyl that is coming too. So
very cool.
Pretty excited about that. We have a huge year planned. I can't get into everything, but I will tell you that we will be all over the place with merch and more. I don't know. I can't tell you. And I can't tell you this big thing that happened today and yesterday. It's really exciting. I'm
excited.
I'm sorry.
I'm excited. It's only February 22nd.
I know, dude.
We're just about to hit 3 months into 2023, and there's been a lot of big things, especially for you. Couple little victories for me, but I mean, the arrows are pointing up, and we're going to continue to do more and more.
Well, and like everybody knows, I'll be back to posting. Sorry, my camera is out of focus again. I did finally order the new one. It should be here Friday. There's a lot of stuff that's working behind the scenes that is going to be great. The partnership with Summit is going to be huge for us. Our partnership with Molly and Howard's Cams and Sweet Patina and Racing Junk, all of that is going to help us just steamroll right into 2023. And here's what's crazy, dude. We haven't even started event coverage yet. Just wait. So, up next is the Southeast Street and Yeet in early April. So we have more than a month with no events. So that gives me time to build the list, which is cool, get all the stuff established. And then we're going to hammer down because April is Southeast Street and Yeet for the first week. Our event is the next weekend, April 14th through 16th, 4th through 8th for Southeast Street and Yeet. Then you go our event, April 14th through 16th. Then Cruise and Lose in Lincoln, Nebraska on April 21st and 2nd or 20th through 22nd, something like that. And then at the end of May is King of the Open Road, which is another regional event, a weekend event. So pretty intense, man. We're going to have a stacked April, and then it looks like a completely stacked June because you've got two major events. You've got the new Alaska Speed Week is in June now. You've got I'll be at
Summer.
Six Summer, and then I'll be at Summit Racing Autocross Week announcing the same week that Six Summer is. So you're attending Six Summer to get us content there. So I think what we need to do is we need to do the daily dose every day. So jump on with us. We'll either do early morning or night. We can talk about autocross and drive, which is what Autocross Week is. And then obviously we're going to talk about Six Summer and the standings and all that kind of stuff because that's what I love. But now I'll tell you this. I've never been to an autocross. So there's never one close. I take that back. I did attend one for about 2 hours. Didn't ride in anybody's car or anything like that. Looked like fun. So I'm excited to go do that. So I'm going to be hopping in cars around all week. So
Yep.
Anyways.
Motorsports Paparazzi will be doing some local autocross events this summer. So I'll be there doing some photos for that. I'm going to be at Byron. Byron's got a bunch of events this year. The Central Illinois event, I forget the name of that one.
Yep. Is that in June or July?
I can't remember offhand. I've got a whole calendar of events.
Yeah.
Next up in early March, March 4th, Motorsports Paparazzi is going to be at World of Wheels. So that's a car show in Chicago.
Yeah.
There's usually some drag cars there, and then there's a ton of show cars. So we're going to do a bunch of content there.
Nice.
Just a lot of stuff coming up. I'm excited.
Dude, it's going to be a great year. I can't wait. I can't wait for all these folks to hang out with us and just all the growth that we're going to have. Okay, guys, thank you for hanging out. Eric, tell them where to find us next week.
Next week, right here, 7 o'clock Central Time, Drag and Drive show.